toe.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
Being a safari driver requires some serious multitasking ability. You've got to be able to talk, look at the road, steer, and occasionally get the vehicle into the right gear.
Do not crash into any trees. Oh, not so dozy.
Just jump into the car and hope for the best, and you'll see where it takes you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised they're moving as fast as that didn't go well.
Who is the best driver? Well, me, of course, although some of the cam ops might disagree.
I'm Nikki here at andBeyond in Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the WildEarth website, head across to the live safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next WildEarth drive.
We have a baby pangolin. A baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
What fascinates me most about the animal circle of life is the intricacies between the large and the very, very small. I mean, it's very easy to go out there and find the large. Once you found the large, the cascading effect down to the small absolutely fascinates me. Alertness and situation awareness is by far the #1 aspect for protecting ourselves out on safari.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth. This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. It's quite a gloomy afternoon here on Phinda. There's quite a lot of cloud cover around. We had a little bit of rain this afternoon, and we can see what the animals are doing. But we've come out to this area not too far from the lodge, and there's been quite a lot of lion activity around. So I think for this afternoon, we're going to spend a little bit of time seeing if we can find this lion. There's 2 male lions. There was a lioness with some cubs also around. And so we'll see if we can find any of those lions this afternoon. There's also a couple of, there's a herd of buffalo, around this area. So we'll see, maybe they've gone down to water and see if they've drunk this afternoon. But it's a beautiful view from up here where we are now. We're just scanning the surroundings around where we are. Welcome aboard your live safari from the African bush. Welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve, everyone. And we've come out not too far from the lodge, maybe 5 minutes or so. And we're seeing if we can find some lions. There was a buffalo carcass around and a lot of water, so I don't think this lioness and the 2 male lions would have gone too far away from this area. There's also been some buffaloes around. It's a good area for elephants, so hopefully we can find a couple of those animals for you on this Friday afternoon. My name's Chad, and on camera we've got Simon, and we're going to see which animals we can find for you. So, yeah, I mean, from here, we're just going to go down a little bit into the drainage line. And that's where this lion was last left. I think with it being a little bit overcast, I don't think she would have gone too far from that buffalo carcass. There also was a giraffe carcass not too far from where we are now. So we're not actually sure how old that giraffe carcass is, or the buffalo carcass, because it's tucked away right inside a thicket. And it's been quite wet around here, so we're unable to off-road at the moment, only in certain areas. So if we are able to get a view of it, it'll be interesting to see how fresh that carcass is. But we think it's a couple of days old. It's a big buffalo bull that's quite well known in this area where we are now. And he was almost on his last legs. He was struggling quite a bit. He wasn't moving too far, but I mean, it's a perfect area for him. There's so much grass around, so much water, and I think eventually maybe just lay down in the thickets, and that's where he took his last breath. And I believe we've got some zebras in camera, quite far off in the distance, in a little open clearing up ahead of us. I think all the animals, after the little bit of rain we've had, it's also been very hot a couple of days ago. I think they're making use of this cooler weather right now, because there is quite a strong breeze, and I think those zebras are going to be out in those open areas feeding. There's lots and lots of lush grass around. I mean, over the last couple of weeks we've had extreme heavy rain, and it's almost transformed Phinda from almost dull to now bright green. A lot of flowers around, a lot of trees that are fruiting, and all of that. So it's a beautiful time to be around. Lots of birds. I can hear a couple of birds in the distance calling, and so they also might be trying to feed on some insects as they fly around after this rain that we've had here on andBeyond Phinda. So I think from here, we're going to head towards that area and see if we can maybe find that lioness. It's not too far from us, but for now, we're going to send you over to Tristan at Djuma.
Chad goes in search of all the animals on Phinda. You're with us here on Djuma, and it's an exciting afternoon for us because we have a very special guest that's joining us on Drive today. This is Jenny.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
And Jenny is the first of our Ticket to Dream holders, which means she's going to be joining us this afternoon on our entire safari. She'll be asking some questions, and a lot of you will be able to see her as she goes on this experience. Jenny, are you excited?
Very excited. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Tristan.
Absolute pleasure. And as Jenny just said, my name is Tristan on camera. I've got David. Before we get into what Jenny would like to actually see this afternoon, Jenny, what are you looking for the most?
Oh, I'd love to meet the beautiful queen, Tangi, of course, and little Maribs, and my girl, Princess Columba.
Okay, so we got a good list this afternoon.
Maybe even the one and only Mighty Tingy, the Duke.
Good, perfect. I mean, look, that's for me is obviously the best drive possible because I also want to see all of those things too. So that'll be really good. So the plan is then we'll head towards Cheetah. We're at Treehouse Dam at the moment, and part of the reason why I came past here is because Jenny's favourite cat is Hosanna, and this is an area where Hosanna used to spend a lot of time, so it's cool just to come past and reminisce a little bit about the area. But from here, we're going to then head down towards Cheetah. We'll try and see if we can find any tracks for the Queen and Marips, and we'll see what we can kind of get there, and then from there meander back this evening towards Quarantine. And the reason for that will be because Tlalamba hangs around Quarantine a lot, and Tingana was last seen in the west, and if his route comes back, often it's down kind of via access towards Quarantine itself. So that's going to be the plan for this afternoon. Hopefully we'll get lucky, and hopefully we'll be able to tick off a number of those dream sightings for you, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Thank
right,
you.
the treehouse is a little bit quiet. There's a hyena right there. David? I didn't even notice it. Did you see it? Me neither, yes. I thought not, because David was pointing the camera at me, rather. There will be lots of hyenas around this afternoon, I suspect, because of where the wild dogs were. The dogs this morning weren't too far from where we are right now. They were up towards Philemon's Cutline area. I saw some tracks for them. The hyenas kind of have been milling. We saw another 2 different hyenas earlier on. This hyena looks very alert. What have you seen, hyena? Maybe we missed something when we drove up here, because it's looking down below this little dam wall. There's a drop-off that goes just to the right, and this little drop-off here was one of the favorite places for not only Hosanna but also for Shadow and her cub at one point. So a lot of you won't know who Shadow is, but it's Tandi's sister. Unfortunately, they disappeared in 2018. But this would be the area that they used to like. They used to lie at the base of this kind of dam wall. I just want to go up on the dam wall so we can get a bit of height and just see the way that this hyena is looking. Is it's looking into this bush here, and that bush there could very well be something lying underneath there. So let's check. I don't see any tracks for anything here that would indicate potential for leopard. Jenny, I believe everybody's welcoming you.
Thank you, guys.
It's awesome to kind of have a guest on board. You know, it's, for us, it's so different because we're so used to just looking at the camera. It's epic to have somebody to actually talk to, other than David. David's quite tired of my conversations these days. We've spent more than enough time together over the course of the last 4 years. So to have someone to talk to and to guide around for the afternoon is a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to this. I reckon we're going to have a really good time. But I don't see anything in the bush itself. I'm just trying to look. You know, the grass is so long at the moment. If it's something like a leopard, even wild dogs, it's really tricky to kind of pick them up. Dogs are a little bit easier because of the way that their ears work. They see these little ears twitching and moving all the time. Whereas a leopard, if it lies down flat, it becomes very tough to find. And we know this area at the moment, for some reason, is where Tlalamba is hanging around a lot. I don't know why she's here all of a sudden. Maybe she wants to secure this drainage line for future den sites. There's a really nice little den site that Tandi used here a few months ago. So I say a few months ago, it's over a year ago now. And so it could be that's what she's doing. I'm not 100% sure why all of a sudden her entire sort of territory has shifted a lot more to the south and west. You know, Shadulu also comes here, so this is kind of the boundary line between the two of them of late. seen both of them here in recent times. I just want to follow this hyena a little bit. I don't see anything. You know, it's amazing, these animal senses. Clearly this hyena picked up something. It wasn't sure. Maybe it was because we were stopped there and it thought maybe there's something around. There's lots of tracks for buffalo in this area, and maybe the dogs themselves have run through this section at some point. It's very, very possible. And with the weather conditions like we've got, the wild dogs would have been quite active during the course of today. We saw it yesterday with that Mbali pack. The way that the pack moved and the way that the sort of collar downloaded showed that they pretty much moved the entire day. They didn't actually sit still for most of the day. So they went from kind of Cheetah all the way up towards Buffelshoek Torchwood and then back across into Djuma. They had a busy day, the dogs. It sounds like a busy morning this morning. It sounded like a little bit of a tense standoff between hyenas and the dogs this morning with Trishala. Jenny, you were with the Talamatis this morning, weren't you?
I was, yes. Beautiful sighting with the whole Pride and dark mane. So it was very special.
Yeah, Beck, it's nice to hear that dark mane is...
The whole Pride and dark mane. So it was very special.
Yeah, Beck. It's nice to hear that dark mane is back with the Pride. He's been spending a lot of time on his own of late. And a lot of you, I know, have been asking, you know, what's happening? Is he back with the Pride? So it's always nice when we get these updates. Where they've been hanging around is an area that's very difficult for us to get signal, around a camp called Hornbill. And that's an area that's pretty difficult for us to get signal. I'm going to actually just show you guys quickly kind of where that is in relation to where we are. David's camera stuff is all over my map, as well as my stuff too, David, don't worry. Sorry, map. Stephen Falconbridge is going to be very upset when he sees how I've treated his map. But anyway, all right, so here we go. I don't know who drew this lately, but there's a little drawing. It looks like a kind of a territory map that someone's drawn. But Hornbill is over here. So this is where they were last night. And unfortunately, what this doesn't show is the contouring of how this layout of the land is. It starts to drop off like this and slopes down towards this boundary on the northern and western side. And so what we're finding is obviously the Talamatis, they come in here a lot and they move along like this, and then often it's from there they kind of bend down and then they come into Djuma or Torchwood and as far as Cheetah at the moment. Now with Kalamba, what I was talking about just now as well is that we're down here at Treehouse Dam, and I was saying that she's spending a lot of time here all of a sudden. Prior to this, she was spending most of her time, so this is quarantine, she would spend her time anywhere from here, kind of northwards, Buffelshoek Dam, this section, up like this towards Hornbill. So this kind of central piece was all where she was pretty much 99.9% of the time. All of a sudden, though, I haven't heard of a sighting up here for the last month. She's been seemingly concentrating more along this sort of area down south. And what I think this is due to the fact that we've been speculating that maybe she has cubs, that she's trying to now secure these lower drainage lines and potential den sites that she was housed in when she was a little cub. Remember when she was born, up until about 3 months, Treehouse Dam, Mulawati, all of this area here was where Tandi used to put her. So she grew up to start with in this area, and it was only when Hukumuri arrived and came in from this section in the bottom corner that she pushed him pushed Kalamba all the way up into this area and raised Kalamba a lot more in this kind of section and into Torchwood. So it's moved quite a bit. And we'll see, you know, maybe that's the reason. There's little cubbies on the way. I'll be super excited to see Kalamba cubs. I think she's going to make the most beautiful mom. All right, now it seems like the rain is starting, which we don't want at all, so the rain can go away. I'm going to just tell it to move on so that we can have a dry afternoon and hopefully find the princess. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across. Actually, we're not going to send you across. We're going to give you a short break and see you shortly.
Just look at that. It is absolutely incredible. And as far as I can see, that all falls within the reserve. So it is a vast landscape, but we are gifted with these incredible things. You know, the wildcats, the aardvark, you name it. It just keeps on delivering. It's just such an incredible privilege to be out here.
And when you think it could not get better, Mother Nature says, hold on tight.
Oh my word, that is gorgeous. We are cooking on gas this afternoon.
Have a look at what we've got. Look at how this is the best day of my gutting career so far.
We have a baby pangolin. We're just gonna go very quietly. There's your aardvark. And for those of you who've never seen one, this is one of the big safari specials on any reserve.
I'm just holding my cap because otherwise it's going to blow away, and with this storm coming towards us.
Absolutely beautiful to be able to see water flowing in this volume in the Kalahari. Oh, look at that. You can see the structural component of these flowers. It is perfect. Such a treat to be in and amongst these incredible insects. How lucky are we? You can see how close they are to the vehicle. Very curious.
Oh, you can do it! There we go. We made it over. Whew. But look at that view. That's absolutely stunning.
You can see how they're going into stalking mode. Okay, there we go. This one female is going to walk straight past the car now. Absolutely stunning. Look at that. I mean, do we just not have the best jobs in the world? That was epic.
Well, we're still slowly bumbling along. I'm just checking all the kind of areas where I've recently seen any sign of Kalamba. Indian mareeps have been hanging. So far, we had a brief visual of the little warthogs before they ran away from us, which is par for the course with warthogs. It's a little group that I've been trying to get more and more relaxed. Every time I see them, I try to just switch off and spend some time. I actually always now check this tree over here on my right. There's a tree there with a little sort of branch that goes off, and we had Kalamba on that tree about 4 or 5 mornings ago, and she's been walking around here a lot. I don't know how she fitted on that branch. She's bigger than the whole branch is when so she kind of like tucked her bum in. But it was a cool spot to see. So she obviously is liking this sort of section, and we know with Kalamba, all of a sudden it's been very weird, and I suspect it's all to do with the overhead conditions and the amount of rain that we've had, but she's become quite arboreal of late. In this area, a lot of our are not huge tree climbers. From sort of 2016, the only cat that we used to see regularly up trees was Karula, Tandi's mom and Kalamba's grandmother. She used to like just sitting in a tree just for the sake of being up in a tree, but since her kind of departure, we haven't really had a cat that's kind of tree orientated. But all of a sudden, since the rains have come and it's gotten really thick, Kalamba seems to have taken up that mantra, and we're finding her a lot more up trees, which is pretty cool. I like the fact that we're seeing her climbing a lot more. It certainly makes our life a lot easier to find her, because if it wasn't for the fact that she's been going up trees of late, finding her would be near impossible. She is, as we know, impossible. She is, as we know, she's probably one of the best I've seen, bar her mom, at just when you see her, being able to just disappear without anyone even noticing where she went. She's got her mother's little slip, that's for sure. I'm hoping this rain goes away. There's like 2 little patches of rain, but they should split and leave us alone. Andrew, yes, leopard spots are unique to each leopard, so it's how we identify a leopard. It would be very difficult without spot patterns. And Jenny, I actually wanted to ask you this because Jenny's been on the most amazing trip. She's been across the Sabi sands pretty much all over the place, as well as in Ngala. And have you started to notice the differences in the leopards in person as opposed to on camera? Is it easier for you to see them on camera? Is it easier for you to see them here and how they kind of the different looks? Because for us, we look at the way that they look rather than spot patterns because of how far you see them, you know?
I guess one of the things that I've loved about this trip is that in these properties, when I have seen these leopards, I've been able to recognise them based on watching them through WildEarth.
Okay.
So,
but
yeah.
not so much spot pattern, more just the way they look.
More just their feet, yeah, just more their features and just recognising, oh my goodness, like for instance, when I was at Singita and I was fortunate enough to see the Tumba male, who is one of Tandi's older offspring, and Tristan's favourite leopard. Yeah, instantly, just seeing those green eyes and that pink nose and his very golden
exactly.
Recognizing him.
The thing is, like, often we get this question, you know, is about how do we recognize these individuals, and is the, you know, from a scientific standpoint, spot pattern is the way that scientists do it, and that because it's irrefutable, the evidence of it. But for us as individuals that work within the environment that we're in, a spot pattern is very, very difficult. Now you'll see that there's going to be a cloth on the lens every now and then. It's a very bright yellow cloth. David, could you find a brighter cloth? You like them yellow? Well, now it's just a black screen, but there we go. It's because it's raining a little bit, so there will be a few spots on the lens every now and then, so I do apologize. If you see David's hand, you know that's what it is. But yeah, so for us, it's difficult because we don't have close-up images of these animals when we see them. So if I spot a leopard, sometimes it's 100 meters away, you know, and so we go a lot off body size, body shape, ear size, ear shape, eye color, those kinds of things help us to determine what a leopard looks like from a distance and which leopard it is. But yes, individual spots, getting back to the question because I've gone on a major tangent now, are the kind of way that, well, each leopard does have individual spot patterns, and so that's how you initially be able to kind of identify the individuals. And the spots that I use mostly are the ones above the whiskers. So that's what, when we refer to a spot pattern, and that's what everyone's referring to. It's the number of spots that sit above the whiskers. So hypothetically, let's take a Tani, for example, 3-3. So she has 3 spots on one side, 3 spots on the other side, so right and left, and that's her spot pattern. But funnily enough, spot patterns, because of the way that you need a good angle to see those sets of spots above whiskers, and it only really works for nice relaxed leopards like we have here, a lot of the time flanking spots are much easier for guys to determine the cat. So you'll find that the flanks that they get, a side-on shot, those spots are all unique to a leopard as well. We're lucky here, we've got some really cool little spot patterns on some of our cats. So Tingana, for example, with his little smiley face on his shoulder, that's a cool little spot to recognize. Lara's got a little paw print on her left front leg, so it's like a little rosette with these little spots around it that looks like a little leopard paw on her front left leg. So there's like random little things like that that you can kind of recognize, and those help with being able to identify a leopard, even if you see a bottom. And you guys, particularly, I mean, James Richard, who watches the show a lot, his ability to identify leopards from tails and feet and side profiles is uncanny. I mean, I don't even know how he does it. I see a lot of leopards in my life and still can't get to that level of detail either. So that's one of the amazing parts about what we do out here, and part of having kind of Jenny on the vehicle as well, is that, you know, this is a community in many respects. While we are the guides and we take you guys on a journey and we try and impart information onto you, and ultimately we're all learning from each other, and the ability for people to interact with us as well as with you guys means that we have a show that not only looks at animals but provides an incredible amount of education both ways, which I think is very, very special, and it makes me always so happy when we get people involved and this love for nature can blossom amongst everybody. But that is an young elephant bull too, because I haven't even acknowledged our elephant bull. I don't know why he's on his own. He's quite little to be by himself. He theoretically, I think it's a little boy. It looks like a little boy. His forehead is starting to round out quite nicely now. He should theoretically still be with a herd. That elephant there is probably, I would say, no more than maybe 12, 14, somewhere there, which is about the time that they start to get pressure from moms. But I don't know, it just feels a little bit small to be on their own. What could have happened though is with, lately the herds have been a lot more temperamental than they normally are. And due to the reason for that is that we're in a situation where it's marula season, and so what marula season brings is a lot of big bull elephants, and the big bull elephants unfortunately harass the little females, and so what you get is a temper spike within the herds, and that means that the older females, maybe their tolerance for their younger boys starts to thin a little bit and become a little bit less than it normally would be, and they get chased out maybe a little earlier than they should. So it does happen at this time of the year. You often see a kind of change in the dynamics of the herd. There's a cool call happening here. I'm going to try to keep quiet and see if it'll carry on calling. It's a black crake that's calling. It's gone quiet now. The call of a black crake is one of my absolute favorite calls. It reminds me of my childhood days when we were, when I was a young kid with my brother. We used to go fly fishing with my grandfather, and the place where we used to go had black crakes in it. And that call just always reminds me of these kind of like misty mornings fly fishing on the escarpment of South Africa. And that call always resonates in my mind. It always is something that I hear wherever I go. It takes me right back to one specific spot that we used to go, where these birds used to just call not incessantly. And I like the call. It's a very kind of weird call. I'll actually try and pull it up because this one's gone quiet. You can see it's also quiet from a weaver point of view. The weavers are done now. Those chicks are all fledged. And you'll see that there's a bit of rain that's starting to fall now as well. No rain, go away. Luckily, like I say, it looks like it's just a bit patchy, so I don't think the rain will last for long. I suspect that it's going to go shortly. Now I need to just find this black crake call and play it for you through my little microphone. That's what the call sounds like. It's a very kind of unique call. You don't hear it that often, but when they do, it's a lot louder than you can imagine. We're very quiet here today. I would have expected more activity. I would have expected this little pan of late to have had a lot more in the way of like little painted snipes, even things like dwarf bitterns. They should be around. Greenbacked herons. Like it's been fairly quiet. I wonder if goshawk has been around so much. Jenny Sarah's asking if you are much of a birder.
I am actually very knowledgeable about the birding back at home in Australia. So I'm a huge birder back at home, and I've been learning here in South Africa as I've gone along in my travels.
I often find being on safari, like in a place like Africa, where you've got, especially now, because you've come in a season where our birds are pretty good.
Yeah.
Birds here, because of their colours, often really instill a kind of fire in somebody. Like people find a passion for birds that they didn't necessarily have before. So we're lucky with the birds we have here. But here's a question, another one for you, Jenny, is what is your favourite bird in Australia?
In Australia?
Yeah.
Okay. My favourite bird in Australia is actually called a pied currawong.
Sorry?
A pied currawong.
That's a mouthful, that name.
We'll have to try and find it on...
Yeah, I'll have to Google that one. I've never heard of them, actually. Is it colourful?
It's actually very plain looking, often mistaken for looking like a crow.
Oh, really? Clever?
Very clever, very extremely clever, with one of the most beautiful calls. And it just symbolises...
I find that so weird, because sometimes you find these birds that have these kind of drab plumage, but the most beautiful songs. And then the opposite way around. Like the lilac-breasted roller is a beautiful bird, but heinous call.
Oh, really?
It sounds like a shrieking banshee. You know? It's not really that pretty from a call point of view. So I always think sound is so important as well, rather than visual sometimes.
And also one of the other most incredible birds is probably one of the most common as well, and that's the Australian magpie.
Yeah, I've heard about them. I've heard that they're crazy clever.
Oh, they are crazy clever. They are they're like, I don't know, they remind me of like a lion, how social they are and their dynamics and looking after their family and their young. And they're a very, very beautiful bird, very special to have in the backyard. Cool. Yeah.
Nice. I think that's the thing about Australia. You know, Australia is also such an underrated country from a wildlife perspective. There's so much that is in Australia, you know, from even mammals. You know, obviously they've got a lot of marsupials. They've got good birds. The oceans are amazing there. So it's a country full of wildlife, which is cool.
A lot of scary snakes. But,
and spiders, I believe.
Oh, yes, spiders. Yes.
All right, we're going to bumble along. We're going to just see if there's any sign of any movement from Kalamba in this area. In the meantime, let's send you back across to Phinda.
Welcome back, everybody, to andBeyond Phinda, where we found these lions. It's the 2 male lions that we said were around this area. And just before you came back to us, the one on the left-hand side actually had his head up, all nicely looking at us. And just as you came to us, he flopped down. But we know from where these males are, a little bit off to our left-hand side. We can't see them now, but that's where we think that buffalo carcass is. And we thought it was a little bit too wet to off-road, but we've seen and it is quite dry, so we are able to off-road. And I mean, look where those males are lying, huh? They're lying dead flat in that little thicket there. I mean, you can imagine being out here, there's a lot of flies around. I mean, there's a rain. I can see off in the distance also there's a big cloud coming in. But they can try to get away from those flies under there. Maybe it was raining a little bit earlier and they try to protect themselves under that little thicket. But, I mean, they also probably have fed off that buffalo. So they're very, very full. And it's surprising that they're not lying too close to that carcass. But I think they know that nothing else is going to chase him off. Being the king of the jungle, there's nothing much that's going to harm you. And I think maybe with their full stomachs, you can imagine that carcass smells quite a bit. We did a bit of a loop around and we actually smelt it quite a distance away from where we are now on another road. So that tells us that this carcass is quite old. I mean, you can imagine these lions feeding, opening up that carcass, all the stomach contents and all that lying down on the ground is going to smell quite a bit. And so these lions, I think, have maybe just moved off a little bit away from that carcass. And with it being a buffalo carcass, I mean, a buffalo bull can probably weigh around a ton, maybe even over a ton. Huge animal, and I mean, so much meat on it. These 2 males aren't going to have to fight the lionesses for any food, because they know that there's going to be food to go around for all of them. I think it would be a different story if, say, that lioness maybe killed an impala or an Ngala. I think these 2 male lions would have fought that lioness or chased her off. And then these 2 brothers, they actually would have fought one another for that carcass. I mean, an Ngala is quite a big antelope, but nothing as big as a buffalo. And they never know when their next meal is going to be. So that's why they do have to fight for it. But like I said, with that buffalo, they're happy to move off a little bit and just relax. Jean, thank you for your question. These 2 male lions are in fact brothers. So often with male lions, they form what we call a coalition. So a coalition is 2 or 3, even 4 male animals that will come together. And these 2 would have been born from the same mother. So as youngsters, they would have spent time with the pride, with their mom. And at around 2.5 to 3 years old, these males would have been kicked out by a dominant male of the area where they were. So these two males, we actually brought them into Phinda from another game reserve, and on Phinda, because we are fenced off, we actually have to swap the males quite often. So we swap them about every 3.5 years or so, and just to get that genetics going within the pride. Otherwise, if we do keep the same males, they could sometimes then potentially mate with their daughters. So we don't want that. And I mean, just to boost the genetics within Phinda, that's why we swap the males around every 3 to 3.5 years. We'll do that. Sorry, there is just another ranger repositioning in the sighting. That's what you're hearing. But I mean, these two males, they have extremely good genetics. If you look at the manes on both of them, I don't know if Simon can zoom in to one of their manes. They've got beautiful, big, dark manes, and I mean, it's beautiful to see that black coming out. And often you can see, oh, there, one lifted their heads, but you can see their mane, as they get older, the mane will start to turn a little bit more black, but also the more testosterone they have in them, the darker their manes are. So, I mean, if you think about the Kalahari male lions, they've basically got black manes, and I mean, they must be extremely full of testosterone. And so these guys, they're not too old. They're around 6.5, 7 years old. So they're almost in their prime time of their life. I would say their prime is probably 8 or 9 years old. And they'll have reigns in this area for potentially the next 2 years. And then if we were in a bigger area like Djuma or Kruger National Park, what they would do is they would actually get kicked out by younger, stronger lions. And then they would have to move out of that territory and they would fight for the pride. But here on Phinda, these two lions, they actually reign quite a large territory. And from where we are all the way far west, there's another pride on Phinda that they often are with. So they can walk, I would say, up to 15, 20 kilometers even on a round territorial patrol. And you might find them spending a little bit of time with these lionesses here, and then they go to the others. But I mean, for now, they're most likely going to spend a little bit of time around here just because there is food available. So I think they'll spend a little bit of time here until that buffalo carcass is finished, and then most likely head on a territorial patrol. This little piggy, these two males, they will stay together for life. So, I mean, they're born together, they will spend their lifetime together. Sometimes, I mean, what might happen is you might get another male that comes in and fights these two, and potentially then, I mean, it can be quite a dramatic scene when they fight, and he might kill one of them, and then that other male will have to spend time alone by himself. You don't often, I've heard of it once or twice where males will, they're lifting their head. I felt there was quite a strong breeze and the male lion just lifted his head up. Maybe picked up a scent or heard something. I can see the one on the right is grooming itself, and I just saw a yawn on the left. That's a very good sign. It is getting quite cool here, so maybe potentially these two males are going to get up and maybe go join the pride where they are with that buffalo carcass. Often grooming and yawning is a good sign that they might start to get up. There's another yawn on the left there. This is exciting though. Hopefully these males are going to get up. So just to get back to the question, so I mean, often if one does die or one's getting too old and injured, the other one might just leave because the one's going to then have to drag behind with that male, and you'd rather be off on his own. But yes, to answer your question, they will spend their time together. But yeah, this is very exciting. I hope these males do get up. I see there's another big yawn from that one on the left-hand side. And it'll be interesting to see if there's the one on the right's just lifted up. See if one gets up. Oh, one is getting up. Brilliant. Nice big stretch. Let's see, he might walk just to the left there. There's quite a nice open area. He might walk through that open area. Let's see what he does. There he goes. I can just see him through the bush there, rubbing his mane up against a tree. And he's even, I don't know if you got that on camera, but he's even scent marking, spraying his urine after a lot of rain. You can imagine their urine would wash off all the trees that they will spray on, and they need a re-scent mark. Let me try go a little bit back. I'm just going to reposition. There we can see him walking off in the distance. There's just another ranger that's going to go ahead of us and see if he can keep up with that other male. But we're going to spend a little bit of time here with this male and see if he does get up and follow his brother. You saw there a nice big yawn. Let's see what he does. But how amazing. I mean, time spent in the bush with lions, often they're sleeping, but to have them getting up and moving around is just something very, very, very special. Gavs, yes, these two brothers would definitely fight over mating rights. So, I mean, there are only a certain number of lionesses in this area. And these two brothers, there'll always be one brother more dominant than the other. So you can imagine, I mean, they have to fight to mate. And I've seen it actually before where we know one lioness and we've seen a male lion mating with her. And then the next day, we've found that same lioness with a different male mating with her. So, I mean, yeah, they would fight, and sometimes, I mean, the fights can be overnight, and the next day the brother is mating with the same lioness that his brother was mating with. So, to answer your question, yes, they would fight, and fights can often be extremely loud, and you can imagine the power that these two male lions would exert when fighting with one another, and they always want to be the most dominant one. And you might find that in this situation, the one that got up first might be the dominant one, because he's gone towards the carcass and towards where the pride is, and his brother still stayed a little bit behind. Beautiful big yawn. How those teeth on this male lion, just incredible. But we're going to spend a little bit of time here because I can see this male lion getting active, which is really amazing. I mean, to come here, male lion lying flat, to now getting up, moving around. It is brilliant weather for them to move around. So I think we're going to spend a little bit of time around here with these males. And as you can see now, that male's just laid dead flat. He's actually rolled over a little bit. Maybe he showed his face too much to camera and he's had enough. That's why he's laid down a little bit. Tawanda, so what happens sometimes is that it doesn't often happen, what you're asking, that they'll form coalitions with other lions. But particularly for males, they'll stay within sort of their bloodline. But there are a few cases that I've heard of where brothers have joined up, also a lion from this pride has joined up with another lion, and they've actually come together to form a coalition. And I mean, it's not something that will often happen out here in the African bush, but it is something that has been recorded and has been seen happening. But I mean, it's a once in a, I would say like once in 1,000 times that might happen. Especially if he is maybe getting a little, maybe they had a fight, and with them fighting, there's always going to be one winner, and that fight might last for a long time. They both get tired, eventually rest maybe close to one another, and then they sort it out by just becoming a coalition. But yeah, I've never seen it personally that the two different males would come together. how amazing is that male lion's paw, the size of it. I think it's probably even bigger than my hand, which is quite a size. You can just imagine the pure strength that comes from that lion. And I mean, even for there's some beautiful European bee eaters flying over us. I mean, even for this male to take down a buffalo is quite incredible. I mean, the sheer strength of it is just unbelievable. I'm starting to get quite a whiff of this buffalo from where we are. The wind is starting to pick up a little bit, so that's why we're getting a smell. But while we are spending a little bit of time here, we'll try and go get a view of that carcass and see if we can show you that carcass. I'm also quite interested to see if it's fresh or how much they've eaten, because there have been quite a lot of lions around here. I mean, there's been these two males. There's a lioness with 4 about 3-month-old cubs that were around there, and there even was a lioness with 3 older cubs, which are probably about 8 or 9 months old, and they're all from the same pride, and they all seem to have fed off this buffalo, but the other lions have moved off for now. Sounded like I heard baboons, but I think it might have been the other lions. It's just so I think there are some other lions around. So what we're going to do, I mean, this male lion, he seems like he's resting there. The other male has settled down, but I think we're going to drive a little bit around here, see if we can get a view of those other lions. While we do that, we're going to send you over to Pridelands to see what they're up to today.
Good afternoon everybody. Welcome to Pridelands Eco Training here in the Greater Kruger National Park, where we've got a couple of young elephant bulls busy grazing. Hello everybody, my name is Steve, joined by Johan on camera, and we are delighted to have you with us. Sorry we're a little bit late. It was raining and we don't have the necessary rain equipment to make sure we stay dry. But we're going to just stick around close to camp. We happen to find elephants right outside the gate, so all is good. Please, any questions you might have that we can answer you from Pridelands, we would love to hear them. We're happy to be out, everybody. Although there is a huge amount of dark cloud behind us, we'll just focus on these ellies for a little while and maybe go spend some time with our bachelor herd of zebra and all of our impala boys, see what silly antics they get up to this afternoon. We were following up on monkey alarm calls this morning, and nothing was found, but there were tracks of a leopard as well as a lioness. So maybe as it gets darker, maybe we will be lucky. Gracie, well, elephant skin is pretty tough and it's quite dark and quite thick, so I think they're well protected against the sun, but they do cover themselves in mud, so I think that helps. But hippos actually produce their own type of sun cream, so they do get sunburnt. You notice a hippo's back and head is quite dark in colour, And when you see them out the water, you get those little pink bits under the body and the armpits, like if someone went to the beach and tanned and then you saw them naked, you'd see where the sun reached and where it didn't. It's the same as hippos. So they do produce their own natural type of sun cream to protect them in the water. But yes, they do get sunburnt. But their biggest issue is not necessarily being burnt, but it's dehydration. So if they are in areas where the water dries up, they are at serious risk of the skin actually dehydrating. And that could lead to, very uncomfortable hippopotamuses. There we go, everybody, the famous African salute. The elephant bottom. Reminds you sometimes of walking through the shopping centre, doesn't it, or the supermarket, picking this, picking that. Except the elephant's trolley is their mouth. Picking up this fruit and smelling it, putting it down. Bearing in mind, everybody, don't ever do that in a market in Italy. Don't touch the fruit. Even if you are 100% sure you're going to buy it. I nearly got attacked by a fruit vendor once. Each culture, I suppose, is different. You don't touch that man's fruit. Not even to test its ripeness. Do not touch it. Being shouted at on the street in very high vocaled Italian definitely does make you feel a little bit awkward. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to Italy, everybody. I'm just saying don't touch the fruit vendor's fruit.
Imagine having your own secluded African bush home where you and your friends can enjoy the ultimate safari experience. If you sign up to be a WildEarth explorer, this could become a reality. Tumbeta House is located in the heart of Djuma Private Game Reserve, the home of WildEarth. You could win a chance to stay at this intimate wilderness retreat, offering you the rare and highly sought-after privilege of your own home in the bush. The prize includes 3 nights for 6 people and includes daily game drives, a chance to see the WildEarth camp, and have dinner with one of our guides. Sign up to be a WildEarth explorer before the end of February 2021, and you could be heading to Djuma, the place that we call home. Available dates are limited, so terms and conditions apply.
Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on WildEarth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
Guys, have a look at what we've got. This is better than my birthday. Look at that. This is the first time that I ever see cubs this small. This is so special. This has officially just become my best sighting of all times.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Welcome back, everybody. So we've moved probably about 50 meters or so since we last saw that male lion, and look what was around the first bush that we came across. This lioness with the 4 young cubs that we were talking about a little bit earlier. And you can see I'll just see 2 for now lying down. There is one a little bit ahead of us that's within the thicket, and it seems like it's actually moving over towards where the male lion was. If Simon pans through there, I can just see them up ahead of us. And the male lion was smacking his tail on the ground, and I think these cubs got quite inquisitive with that noise, and that's why they might be going up there to see what that little noise is. And Mom knows that the 2 dads are up there, so she's not going to worry at all about them. But if they do go a little bit too far, she'll give a contact call, and then those 2 cubs will then go back towards where she is. I can see actually the mom's lifting up her head, just looking out to see where those cubs are. You can imagine she doesn't want them to go too far. But how incredible, from 2 male lions sleeping to now 4 cubs, a lioness looking up. You can see that lion's body language, how she's just looking up a little bit. You can see she's also panting quite a lot, which means that she's probably gouged herself in that buffalo carcass. We did go past that buffalo carcass, and it is quite an old buffalo carcass. It looks like this buffalo bull potentially died while mudwalling, so maybe with it being so old and fragile, doesn't have so much strength, it might have got stuck in the mud, potentially. There you can see how beautiful is that. Mom playing. Listen here if you can hear the noises. I can just see that one young cub's belly, when it lay up, it's very, very, very full. Very rounded stomach. I don't think that cub can get any more meat. I can see the 2 cubs that were off to our right have just stopped a little bit and looking at what their dads are doing. There's the lioness, she's up. Maybe she's going to investigate and see what these 2 youngsters are up to. And you'll see that the next 2 are most likely going to follow, if you listen. So I'm just going to move a little bit, see if we can get a view for you. Let's see what happens here. I think Mom just came around the thicket just to see what was going on, because I heard the male lion growl a little bit. Oh, there she just lay right in front of us. So there's a ranger that's repositioning in this sighting. That's the vehicle that you're hearing around us. You can see now all the 4 cubs are now back together. And you can still see that they are quite inquisitive with the noise of the vehicle. Because you can imagine, I mean, we've only seen these lion cubs probably 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times with the vehicle. And I mean, Mom would keep them in a den site that's very, very well hidden away from any predators around. And they don't see many vehicles up until they're about 2.5 to 3 months old. That's when Mom will then start to bring them out of that den site, potentially to get their first meal, which would be a carcass of some sort, maybe a zebra or wildebeest often mom will leave the den site, leave the cubs at the den site, and she'll go and hunt for herself, and then she'll come back and fetch the cubs and actually take them to that carcass for their first meal. You can imagine it must be quite an adventure for them, first time out of that den site, exploring their new home for a little bit. Olivia, thank you for your question. So I think the way that they will see, so the reason they pick certain males is just that it's those dominant males that are in the area where those lionesses are. So I mean, they won't necessarily go and pick that male, but when the lionesses come into estrus, so when they come into that time where they are ready to mate, often what they do is they'll potentially go and find a male lion. And I mean, male lions, they are ready to mate from about 4.5 years old, when they'll be sexually active and they'll be able to mate. And it's just the dominant males within that area. We have, however, on Phinda recently seen there's 3 lionesses that are from this pride, and they're almost a breakaway, and they've moved from where we are now quite a lot further north towards the northern parts of Phinda, and they've been mating with the north males. So it might be that, I mean, these 2 male lions weren't around too often for them, and they might have been looking for other males to mate with. They might have even heard them vocalizing, and they decided, no, they're going to go see who that is. And they might have been coming into estrus, and maybe even these 2 males that we were looking at earlier, maybe they were mating with other lions at the time, and that's why they weren't giving them enough attention, and that's why they might have started to move a little bit further north from us. I'm going to try go a little bit forward. We might get a gap to see the male also, with the cubs. If you just bear with us 2 seconds. There we go. Apparently that's a lot better for everybody watching at home. If you listen carefully, we can... You can see that cub got a little bit of a fright. I could see that the tail was moving of the male, and the cub was almost trying to chase it. There it goes again. How incredible is that? Now, I can just see the other male a little bit further back from where that cub is now walking towards us. And he might have got a little bit irritated and maybe moved off. And that's why this cub's now starting to annoy the other male. Let's see, maybe this cub comes back into picture and starts to head back. It's amazing how small these little cubs are. They're still very, very spotty on their back legs, even all over their body. And you can see their small little faces. It's quite incredible to see how big their paws are. I mean, even from such a young age, how big their paws are. You can see that youngster's just looking at the vehicle, very inquisitive of the vehicle noises. I mean, you can imagine this big green machine coming towards you. I've only seen it a couple of times. You're almost wondering, what is that? Why is it here? What's it doing? You can imagine what runs through their head. And I mean, you could see when we were with those male lions, they didn't have a care in the world around us, because when we do start to view lions, especially at a young age, what we do is we'll view them with one vehicle at a time. If they are very young, we'll actually have no off-roading for them, just because you can imagine with the long grass around, the lion cubs, they can almost get lost in that grass, and you wouldn't want to get too close to them. Yeah, you wouldn't going to get too close to them and chase them off. So we decided not to off-road, and then from a certain age of about 3.5 months old, we'll then start to off-road for them once they move in with the Pride, with Mom, and then slowly start to introduce more than one vehicle, 2 vehicles, and then eventually 3 vehicles, where we are at this stage now of 3 vehicles with these cubs. You can see they are almost settling down with the vehicle, which is good to know. Be very ethical around these cubs. You can see the cubs are slowly coming back to Mom. I'm going to keep quiet for a little bit. I can hear Mom making some noises. I see Mom getting a little bit annoyed there. Now Mom's moving. She might go back to her original spot, but all 4 of the youngsters are following her. We're going to just see if they do pop out on the other side of this thicket, just in the open areas. I can just see her coming out. Let's see if she lies basically in the same spot. We still got that little tree in the way there. And I can just see the youngsters now come in. There we go. You can imagine 4 youngsters annoying you. Once you've got a full stomach, all you want to do is just rest. Yo, how incredible is that? They all look like they're suckling. I'm going to try and maybe go a little bit forward, see if we can get a view through there. Oops, sorry about that. One of the rangers might have driven over a branch, and that's what scared those little cubs. I think I'm just going to stay where I am for now. Let these youngsters just settle down a little bit. You can see they are a little bit nervous, and I think that branch that a ranger drove over may have scared them. You can imagine that cracking of the branch. They're not too sure what that is, so I think that's why they might have run off. But we'll just stick here, maybe go a little bit back, see if we can get a view from there. It is quite a nice open area here, so we are able to off-road around these lines. I think I'm just going to poke my nose in there a little bit and see if we can get a view. How's that sound? Brilliant. Now we don't have that little tree in our way. You can see that young cub coming back to suckle. I'm going to keep quiet for a little bit. They are quite vocal now while they're trying to suckle. How incredible are those noises? I think we're just going to sit here for a little bit in silence and just listen to them fighting over who's going to suckle and who's not. It seems like they've all got what they're looking for. They've settled down quite a lot. now they seem like they're all suckling. You can see mom wants to move a little bit. You can see she's almost gone onto her stomach. This is an extremely special moment to witness out here in the bush. And you don't often see cubs suckling like this, being so vocal, moving around with the males. So I mean, it's an incredibly special moment to be here with these lions. And I hope one day, Lindy Lou, that you can join us here on your own live safari and not be cooped up at home watching on the TV. If you haven't been on safari, it is something that I would try and push you to do. It's just incredible to be out here in this natural environment, watching these animals do their normal everyday lives, and it's quite incredible to live the life here. There's just another ranger that's joined us here at the sighting. You can see that it is quite a busy sighting. It's an extremely special thing that we want to show all of our guests, these young cubs. Oof, there's a little bit of sunshine breaking through the clouds there, which is quite welcomed. But you can see that lioness, she's got the perfect spot there. That sun does break through the cloud. It's not going to be too hot. She is a little bit in the shade, so it's a beautiful place for her to be. You can see she's almost given in. I mean, she was almost fighting them off, but now they've all seemed to have settled, suckling, and it's amazing to just see them suckling. I can see Mom's stomach going up and down. You can imagine how full she is from this buffalo. That's not too far from us on our left-hand side. It's actually also in the water, the buffalo carcass. You can hear there's also a lot of birds around us. I think with that little ray of sunshine coming out, they're also quite excited. Not too chilly now. Maybe they're starting to vocalize their territories and where they're going to start to roost maybe for the rest of the evening. You can hear some rattling testiculars in the background. I can also hear some Birchall's kukels. There's a couple of birds calling in the distance. I think we're going to spend a little bit more time here. I mean, there's so much happening with these lions, with the carcass. As it does start to get cooler, they might start to move to that carcass. So we're going to stick right where we are and see what happens.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
Riverbeds are a great way to find water and look for places where elephant have excavated hollows. You can then dig into the sand, and after a couple of feet you should find damp sand, which then can be squeezed out or siphoned off for water. And with water being one of our scarcest resources, it is a good idea to conserve water where and how you can.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on WildEarth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Look at this, the little one is up and about. Certainly hasn't had enough milk at this age. No amount of milk is enough. Oh, Corky. Too sweet. Oh, look at this. That is stunning.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Hello everyone, my name is Trishala and I am a naturalist and safari guide here in Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands in South Africa. I think that the information that we provide, and most importantly the questions that you ask, give both you and I a really good idea of what's going on. My friend Fernando here, he's a flat-necked chameleon and I love them. They're just these gems that you manage to find in the bush.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
Well, we're still on the search for Thandi and Marips. They haven't yet shown any sign of popping out. We haven't found any tracks yet of them, but I'm hopeful that they will eventually. Where we are is obviously on Cheetah at the moment, and they typically not quite as far south as where we are right now, but I was just doing a loop here in case Kachava and the cub is also around. They were seen not too far from here yesterday. Well, the little boy was, not Kachava. So I just wanted to have a little scratch, and we know Shasha comes this side as well, so it's just a worthwhile place to have a little scratch before we start to head back and loop the same loop we came in for any sign of Marips and Thandi. Normally we find the tracks on the northern side of the open clearing there and around the drainage line, but I didn't find anything today, and maybe that's a sign that she potentially hunted yesterday. With the weather that we had and the rain that came through, it's the kind of conditions Thandi thrives in, and so maybe she's got to kill somewhere, and that's where they are. Normally if the little male is left to his own devices, he can't sit still, as we know, and he's up and down and round and in and out and basically just all over the place. So I'm hoping that if they are on a kill or something like that, or something and they finish up and start to emerge now, the weather that we're having right now is sort of rainy and overcast and cool, and it's conditions that cats theoretically should be moving around in. It's not like it's too hot for them to move around at this stage, so I'm pretty sure we'll have some luck at some point. I know that it sounds like Langa was seen just now on crossing from Djuma into Little Gowrie over the road, which is interesting to me because we know we've had Shadulu, Tlalamba, Sabui all on that kind of southern boundary, and it's not really a place for a little girl like Langa to be at the moment. She's going to get a hard time if she goes there. Tlalamba is not going to take lightly to that, even though, you know, she had that competition with Sabui. I don't think Tlalamba will be the same cat and as sort of relaxed about Langa's kind of presence, rather than, you know, Sabui's a big cat and can handle herself. Langa's still small and growing, so she would have a much tougher time when it came to Tlalamba and handling her. And well, Shadulu we know is much bigger too. But the guys weren't 100% sure. They just said a small female, so I mean it's the only one I can think of in the area that would be around that section. All the other females are fairly large girls now, you know, and we know that Kara is more to the north, Inzutini is more to the west, and it really only just leaves Langa as a potential candidate for that sort of size and profile that they're talking about. So what I think I'm going to do is we'll just check around Cheetah, and then we'll go towards the dam and then back on the main road and see if she pops up. June, what is epic leopard sighting? Oh, goodness. June, you're asking a very tough question. I think it depends. There's been so many that are just standout sightings for me that I don't know if I can put my finger onto one. And Jenny, you?
Oh, wow.
You've had a few goodies while you've been here.
I've had quite a few, actually, yeah. My very first sighting of leopards was actually at Ngala.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to spot my very first leopard myself, which turned out to be the New Zulu female and her male and female cubs. So that was probably one of the most memorable, definitely, yeah.
That's awesome, yeah. I like that. I mean, it's one thing to see your first leopard, but if you spot your first leopard, So I think for me, my leopard sightings are broken into different things. So, there's the kind of cute or rare side of a leopard encounter that is favorites, and then there's kind of action side that are favorites, and then there's individuals that kind of become favorites for basically photographic reasons. So I think that's the kind of three categories that I always split my sightings into. So from a cute perspective or a rare perspective, I think I have two that are very close. One is seeing those tiny little cubs of tundies when they were only a few hours old. So that sighting that we had where James had seen her in the morning and she was still pregnant and looking for den sites, and then in the afternoon we found her with these tiny little cubs tucked up in a hole, and those cubs were, they were like the size of her muzzle, not even her head. They were so small. So I think that, just because of the rarity and the chance of that ever happening again is so small, that for me will always stand out. So I think that's the one. The other one, in terms of kind of cute and cuddly and those kinds of things, is the same kind of setup, but with Tlalamba, when we found Tlalamba for the first time. Those two will always be, when you see a leopard when you're the first person ever to see that leopard, it's a pretty special feeling. So I think those will always stick with me for a long time from that perspective. From a craziness perspective and like epic behavior, I had a sighting once down in the southern part of the Sabi sands where I had a male and female leopard that were mating. It was Scotia and Shivonakele that were mating in the south. And they were walking along, and next thing they just kind of cut off into the bush, and there was this commotion, and we drove round, and there was Shivonakele up. He was literally running towards a tree, and in his mouth he had a python that was about 4 meters long. And the python itself had been split down the middle, and Scotia was fighting with a hyena over a duiker that had been killed by the python and was now being obviously trying to feed off it. So these leopards were interacting with hyenas, had the python, and they went up the tree, and there was this massive snake dangling from the tree with two leopards and hyenas. It was pretty crazy. So that's always a standout for me. Yeah, I've had lots. The other day with the Warthogs and Kuchava, Tandi, Marips all together, another crazy one. So yeah, I've been spoiled, I think.
Definitely.
It's, the problem is you start to think about it, and it sounds really bad when you're like, I can't really think of an epic one. But when they start to add up over time, every single moment is generally a good one. Mm-hmm. Like I honestly can remember pretty much every single leopard sighting I've had. Doesn't matter if it's been bad visual or not. It's just that's how they are. Like, they imprint on you, and you always feel better off from having an experience with them.
That is for sure.
So nailing down one sighting for me is always really tricky. It's a question I get often, but struggle to. And I suppose you'll get it now when you go home. You're going to see, everyone's going to be like, what was your favorite sighting? And then you're going to be like, wait, I remember that. Yeah. So, it's a tough one in that regard. But, all those hours spent with Hosanna, that is a cumulative thing.
That was going to be a question I was going to ask you, Tristan. What is one of the most happiest memories you've had, being so privileged to have been able to watch him grow up here on Djuma?
There's a lot in that.
Yeah.
I think the privilege in watching him grow up is just that. We got to watch a cat that was different in so many respects. So Hosanna was able to break the mold of what we understood of young male leopards in many ways. Mm-hmm. So he was a lot more sociable than we gave leopards credit for. He always seemed to attract some sort of attention from another cat. And we had this crazy opportunity when he was growing up, not only from a perspective that we tracked him a lot on foot, so he was quite relaxed on our bushwalks, but two, because we had, at the time, we were doing a lot of nighttime stuff. So we were doing a lot of drone work, and that meant that David and I often, at one period, were spending, we would go out at 3 o'clock in the morning? So we'd be out with him from 3 in the morning, and then we'd kind of, stay the whole morning until 9, and then we'd go back again in the afternoon and stay until into the night, Mm-hmm. So we were spending at one point 12 hours a day with that cat, which is crazy. Yeah. And just everything he got up to, the amount of craziness that we watched from him, shenanigans to cute moments to... And I think the one thing that always sticks out for me is I had 2 sightings of him. One was from a photographic perspective where we had him on Buffelshoek Dam Wall, and it was just the most crazy, beautiful orange light behind him. And how that whole thing played out was that we were actually watching a herd of buffalo. And
yes, I remember the sighting. Yeah, definitely. You had your feet up on the dash, chilling.
I was chilling. This track's for a female leopard from yesterday here. I was just chilling and taking it easy. I was like, he's not going to be around. There's buffalo. There's no sign of him because he'd been seen there in the morning. And we kind of finished up with the buffalo, and I sort of turned the car around, and there he was just staring at us like, hello, I've been here for how long? And you haven't actually noticed me, And then he went up on the dam wall, and we just had this crazy sighting of him like right here, just looking at us with these big orange eyes, So that was one moment. And the other one was actually with David. We were sitting, and this sighting had really nothing amazing about it, but it was just like one of those moments where you just kind of trigger how fortunate you are.
Yeah.
So like we're sitting, and it was maybe 3:30 in the morning, and it was icy cold. It was really cold. And we were just kind of sitting at the dam cam, and obviously he spent so much time at this little camera, and he entertained everybody for hours on end there. And we were just sitting, and I was like, you know what, the specialness of having spent, because it was towards the end of that period where we had spent so much time with him, and I was just thankful for the fact that every day we'd go to that dam cam, and there he would be sitting curled in his little ball waiting for us, and then we would go on these little epic adventures, where he would take us walking for the morning, and in the afternoon you'd find him, and then he'd take you walking back to the dam, and then he would lie up there, So it was like just an appreciation of the amount of time that we had spent with him, and it was like this cold kind of misty morning, and there he was just curled up next to us.
I remember Jamie always referring that to Hosanna's hidey hole.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I mean, it was at one point it got ridiculous. Like, it got to the point where guys were like, I'm going to go look for another leopard because he's just literally there all the time. It was just his little spot.
Amazing.
And that's not something you really get to see very often. There's very few times where a leopard is going to occupy a space like that as consistently as what he did at his age. So we were very fortunate. There's some baboons there, which is not great from a leopard point of view. Typically, I find when baboons are around, leopards generally make themselves quite scarce, and are not all that inclined to be that much out and about. But you never know. They can also be a blessing, because sometimes they go up a tree and they spot a leopard from far and start to alarm call and can indicate at least that there is something around. I suspect the tracks that we saw just now must be for Thandi. She hasn't really been pushing that far south, but of late has started to. I mean, the other day we left her in the cub right here, and so that would maybe be her just doing a territorial patrol yesterday during the rain, or just before the rain, because it's been washed a little bit, those tracks. So she was also around this section, and I'm hoping, when I have struggled and we don't find a lot of tracks and it's kind of moody conditions, often my default is just to come and sit here at Cheetah on the dam. And the reason why I like to come and sit here is from this point, because of how kind of central it is to the Cheetah property, any sort of alarm call that is around, you often pick it up. And so the likes of baboons or impalas or monkeys, they often give away the presence of these spotted cats on Cheetah. And sometimes when you haven't really been lucky with tracks, it's good just to slow down a little bit and come and sit and just be patient and have a little listen. And from there, sometimes things will reveal themselves. So it's one of my kind of biggest things when I'm out on safari, is that it's sometimes good just to slow down, and to give yourself a chance to hear as well as see, Many times we're so desperate just to find a track and to try and look, and sometimes good just to kind of stop and listen rather than look. Jesse, leopards preying on baboons does happen, but not common. A baboon is a dangerous creature. It's big, it's strong, and there's multiple of them. It's very seldom that a baboon's on its own. And so most of the time what you'll actually see is leopards being chased by baboons. I actually had a crazy sighting, talking about crazy sightings, of a female called Ravenscourt, who was on Singita, and she had 2 sons and her older son at the time, which was a weird situation. The older male didn't leave her, so when she had her new litter, he just stayed. He was like, I'm not going anywhere, Mom. And the 4 of them used to walk around together, and it was this crazy sort of 3.5, 4-year-old male walking around with these 2 1-year-old males and mom. And they were walking down the road, and a whole baboon troop came and they just scattered these 4 leopards everywhere. So generally baboons are quite aggressive, particularly to female leopards and younger leopards. But when the big males come about, so when you start to see things like a leopard like Tingana, they're going to be a lot more wary of him because of how his ability to kill them is very, very real. And in certain areas, so places like Lower Zambezi, even into South Luangwa, Mana Pools, I've seen it, and Northern Kruger, there are males that even specialize in baboon hunting, which is pretty crazy. There's a male, actually, funny enough, in Kruger at the moment that occurs near Shingwetsi, and he's a big baboon hunter, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. So it's not common, but it does happen. And it's also, it's very much prey dependent. So if there's easier things to hunt, it's like any animal, it's like lions as well. They're not going to target something like an elephant if they can hunt a buffalo. But if there's no buffalo and all there is elephant, then they take the risks that they have to in order to find the food that they need. These guys make me laugh, the baboons. They're so naughty. I'm sure Chitwa is not going to be excited to see that they're roosting here tonight. I don't think they're going to go very far with the weather that's starting to set in. The rain is coming down now and starting to kind of really blanket. The clouds have dropped and it looks as though it's going to be a sort of miserable, dreary, drizzly night, which doesn't bode well for movement of baboons. They typically are not huge fans of this kind of weather, so they're going to find the big trees that are around the camp. And they're going to go and roost there. Sometimes they'll even roost on the decks of the lodge. I remember at Cheetah we used to have big fights with the baboons. They used to go and sit on the lounges and then leave these grubby paw prints everywhere that you'd have to go and somehow wash out. Oh, there's a crocodile, David. You see it? Cruising along the bank. So this will be either Vlad or Boris. I don't know which one it is at the moment. We'll have to get a closer view of it. But those are the 2 crocodiles that are in this dam. Like I said, the names are ridiculous. I mean, Boris the Blade and Vlad the Impaler are, I suppose, fitting for crocodiles, but equally ridiculous as well. What you often find in these conditions is the crocs, they're not going to be sunning themselves. Obviously, there's no sun. As the rain is falling, they're now just doing little cruises along. And they'll kind of check for any signs of any antelope species that might be coming down to drink. Otherwise, what they're going to be doing is hunting fish. These guys are big fish hunters, and because it's flooded up at the moment, there's lots of small little bays that they can go into. And what these crocs do is, you can see how they've presented laterally at the moment. So what they do is they actually push themselves sideways into those bays, and they basically block the bay off with their entire body. And the fish then are so desperate to escape that they start to jump over the crocs. And as they jump, the crocs just latch out and grab them midair, which is pretty crazy. The best spot for it is actually closer to the camp, so you'll have to cross the dam to get there to be able to hunt like that. But I was wondering if maybe he wasn't hunting with that technique on the little flooded section where it's overflowing at the moment. That would make a good place for a croc to be able to hunt. Now, I can't remember which one's got the missing tip of the tail, if it's Boris or Vlad, but this is the one with the missing tip to the tail. You can see just on the edge, it doesn't actually complete. Vlad is the one with the missing tip, that's right. Thank you, Jarrett. So you can see when it was swimming there that the tip of the tail is missing on this particular individual. Creepy, though, the way that they move, these guys. You guys have also got a huge amount of crocodiles in Australia. Big saltwater crocs as well.
Many.
Such a funny thing, because people that don't have crocs in their country are fascinated by them, but people that do are, they're like, oh, it's just part and parcel of life is to have crocodiles around, Amazes me also how effortless they are when they swim through the water, and how they just disappear too. I mean, you can see it's just kind of slowly rolling its way into the water and gone, just like that. You would never know there's a croc there if you came now. Awesome. All right, let's carry on a little bit and see what else we can find. Maybe some decent birds. I want to just do one more loop around where we've been seeing Thandi and the cub again, just to see if there isn't any sign of them towards the Muluwanini. We're just kind of getting back to Hasana. I often, we get to a point where it's not complacency, but you're like, because it's in the moment and you're seeing him regularly, you just kind of, you're like, oh, it's awesome, we get to see this cat all the time. But now looking back on it, you know, I miss those days so much, because it was the opportunity to spend that amount of time with a leopard. I don't think I'll ever get back. You know, it's like, that's time that is as precious as anyone could imagine. And now, as time has gone on, it's become more and more evident. I mean, we often talk about it, just how fortunate we were to have that time with him. And it's why, like, I'm so desperate to see, I know you are as well, and I'm so desperate to see him again, because he's come so far since we last saw him. You know, he's almost become, he's a territorial leopard now, he's mated,
he's a big boy,
he vocalizes, you know, these are all new dimensions that we haven't experienced with Hosana. And so, you know, I'm really desperate to kind of see him again. I'm hoping that I'll see him in June, July, because I'm going to be heading in that direction. But the one thing is that we might start to see Hosana moving back a little bit. I don't think he'll make it all the way back to Djuma, but you know, with Hukamuri disappearing, the likelihood is that territory is going to be divvied up between Tortoise Pan and Mulawati for now. But what that might mean is that Tortoise Pan is no longer patrolling that western boundary, and that opens up a bit of a gap for Hosana to start pushing back closer towards Djuma, and maybe we get the odd sighting of him on Simambili. So,
and do you think even the little chiefy could still challenge Tortoise Pan, even if?
Yeah, I mean, Tortoise Pan is not that much older than him. They're very similar in size.
They're all
and
2016. They're both of them 2016 cubs.
Yeah, exactly.
So the same age.
Yeah. So there's really no kind of discrepancy in size. It's more just about attitude and the stage and desire to push and expand the territory. One thing with Hosana that has been evident throughout his life is he's always been pretty comfortable staying in pretty small areas and being happy to just kind of mill about. And even if you look at his territory now, it's not massive in comparison to a lot of other leopards. You know, he has yet to cross the Sand River and go southwards. So he's just on that northern bank, and he kind of just mills about
he's
there.
He's just happy there, yeah.
And he's got the run of the place, really. There's no other male leopards challenging him there. He's got multiple water holes, lots of prey animals. So, you know, for him, he doesn't have to worry.
It's good.
I always say, like, it's typical of him that he ended up in kind of going to the royal palace almost. He went and found the one spot in the Sabi Sands where it was like low density of vehicles, so he doesn't have to even worry about vehicles anymore. He's got all the space that he needs. He's got, you know, he's even got his little throne, which is this deck that is next to one of the water holes that he's been seen on top.
Yes.
So, you know, he's like got the perfect little spot now.
He's a prince. So.
Exactly. He's got the, like I said, it's the royal suite that he's currently occupying at the moment.
That's awesome.
It's quite interesting to actually see these kudu are out and about. You know, normally with them, they're a little bit more shy, but I wonder if with the weather and the darkness that it is already, that they're happier to be out and about with the kind of oxpeckers and the waterbuck on this clearing. It'd be a lot more dangerous for them.
And normally a kudu quite skittish as well?
Yeah, normally quite shy, so this is quite relaxed for them.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to carry on. Let's see if we can find any sign for our mischievous boy that's kind of never will replace Hosana, but is certainly on the road capturing hearts like Hosana did.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a WildEarth explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, It was the very early stages of the internet, and all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
The croc is still holding another one there. It's holding from the hindquarters. I would really want the wildebeest to cross. Is it trying? The croc is holding the tail. It's holding tight. Oh no. Goodness me. Lucky, lucky wildebeest. You have another day to leave.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Welcome back to andBeyond Phinda, everybody. So we left those lions. They had moved a little bit into the thickets, so there wasn't a great view. But look what we came to. These 3 subadult cheetahs. Beautifully out on this open area, just relaxing. Beautiful to see cheetahs out in the open. Not too much grass around. They're lying on that little sandy patch there. There is another vehicle moving behind us. That's why that one cheetah on the right is just looking over its shoulder. But it's amazing just watching that vehicle go by. And so this, where we are, is actually it's a private airstrip. So just grass, no tar. And I can see down at quite a distance, and it's a good area for these cheetah, because you can imagine nyalas, impalas, things like that will often at night time come to graze on these open areas. They can see much further to see things like cheetah, lions, things like that might want to hunt them. And I can see quite far off in the distance that there are a couple of impalas and 2 male nyalas. But I think I was just having a look through my binoculars, and it looks like a bachelor herd of impala, so all males, and then 2 male nyalas. And I think for these 3 younger cheetah, it's quite difficult for them to hunt a big impala or nyala like that. So that's why they don't seem too interested. And also, within this open area, I mean, these cheetahs aren't going to have too much of an opportunity to hunt those impala. But if you do look a little bit over these cheetah, I can see that it is a little bit thicker. So what these cheetahs would essentially do is that if they do spot something that they potentially want to hunt, they might try and slink off into those thicker areas and try to stalk up much closer to the prey that they're wanting to hunt, and then use that extreme speed of theirs to try and catch whatever they're going for. But for now, they seem like they are just resting on this open airstrip here. They don't seem like they're too worried about those nyalas or anything like that for now. If I do look through my binoculars though, the one on the left-hand side, I mean, cheetahs are extremely thin, slender animals built for speed, and so they are quite small, but I do see a little bit of a bump on the stomach there, which might mean that they've eaten in the last couple of days. And you can imagine after a nice big meal, they can be quite lazy, lazing around. So that's a perfect area here on this airstrip to rest for them. They've got an amazing view. They can see anything that's coming. So if they do need to get away quite quickly from potentially a lion or a leopard, they are able to do that from this open area. And it's amazing, it seems like these cheetah, they're almost like all looking in different directions. The one on the right is now looking off to the right-hand side. The one on that's lying flat's looking directly down the runway. And the other one's looking almost over its sibling's shoulder. Just making sure that there's no potential threats around. Mandla, so the biggest animal that cheetahs would hunt, so I mean for these particularly young cheetah that would most of the time be with their mother, the mom would often take down things like impala, inyalas, maybe an inyala I would say would most likely be the biggest animal. For these cheetah I would say probably a younger impala, female or maybe male. But I have seen before, which is quite incredible, a coalition of 2 male cheetahs up in the northeastern parts of Phinda and our beautiful grasslands. I've seen them take down a almost fully grown wildebeest, blue wildebeest. So, I mean, that's an animal that probably weighs 120 to 150 kilograms. So, I mean, I think that was just a good opportunity. It was a male that was by himself. So I think they just took that opportunity and almost tried their luck, and they were successful, which was quite incredible. We saw the whole chase right in front of us, and it took them a while to get the wildebeest down, but they persisted and everything worked out in the end. The wildebeest was struggling a little bit, but I mean that the one cheetah was around the neck, and slowly that wildebeest then fell, and the cheetahs did end up feeding off it. And they killed it in the morning, and that afternoon my guests and I, we decided to go back and see how much they had eaten, and they had basically eaten pretty much all of it. So they spent the day there feeding, because they never know when their next opportunity to feed is going to be. I mean, they hunt, but they're not too successful. I would say probably maybe like 30%, maybe 40% of the time they're successful. So they never know when their next meal is going to be. So they've got to take the opportunities that they get. And if you've ever had the privilege of seeing cheetahs feed, they're very clean feeders, but they feed quite quickly. Often feeding, looking up, looking around, seeing that nothing like a hyena or leopard is going to come and steal that carcass from them. And then they often feed and just move a little bit away from the carcass, try to digest a little bit, and then they'll move back to the carcass and feed, move away. And they'll do that pretty much for the whole afternoon if it is a bigger animal like a wildebeest. So yeah, that's my personal story, that the biggest animal I've ever seen cheetahs take down. But I mean, in things like the Kalahari, they might take down maybe a wildebeest, maybe a young eland. I saw the other day that cheetahs killed an eland. That's pretty much a similar size to a blue wildebeest, a younger eland, that is. I don't know if you're able to hear that. But I can hear impalas off in the distance behind us, and they're what we call rutting, so they're fighting one another. And those cheetahs, they heard that and almost all looked in that direction immediately. And it's just a sound that they might not be familiar to, and that's what caught their attention. So the sound sounds similar to an impala alarming, but it's almost a more deep grunt that they do, fighting one another. And I mean, we are coming up slowly to the time where they do start to to rut. So rutting season's about April, where the males are going to fight one another for territories to then start mating with the impala females. And they'll fight for a harem. So a harem's a structure, the impala's structure, that's one male to many different females. And so they're already starting to show their dominance and try and assert dominance within the bachelor group. And when they are big and strong enough, they'll then go into impala herds, where they'll then start to try and fight the dominant male of those females and see if they can kick him out and then mate with those females within that herd. Jerome, I've never seen any animal out here in nature giving birth. Cheetahs in specific, they're similar to lions, where they'll go into a den site where they'll give birth. So that's quite a dense area, maybe in a grassland where there's lots of grass around, and the mom can tuck herself up in that grass and she can then give birth there. So no, I've never seen a cheetah giving birth, and I'm not too sure that there's many people out there. I'm sure there are people out there that have seen cheetah giving birth, but I think there's a small little chance that you would be able to see a cheetah giving birth, especially because they are going into that thick den site, where it's a protected area for these cheetah and cheetah cubs. At a very young age, they're very vulnerable. I mean, they almost can't fend for themselves, or not almost can't, they can't fend for themselves. They just lie around making noises and things like that. So that's why mom will tuck them away in that den site, that we call it. The youngest cheetah that I have ever seen, Jerome, is probably about 2 months old. And we actually were lucky enough to find the den site where mom had stashed her cubs, because we had seen her going in and out there, and we were lucky enough one afternoon to drive past and to see those little fluff balls all popping their heads up out of the long grass. And it was a view of maybe 25-30 seconds, and they didn't know what we were, so they basically tucked themselves back into that den site and hid away. So that's the youngest cheetah that I've ever seen. But it was still an amazing experience to just see those young cheetah, and they're almost black and white when they're born, and they're very, very fluffy. So very cute little animals when they are young. Now I can see that one on the right hand side has laid down in a different position, and I don't know, Simon, if you can see the stomach of that cheetah, and it's quite rounded. So that just tells us that they have eaten in the last maybe day or two, depending on what they ate. They're just trying to digest all that meat that they would have fed on in the last day or two. And cheetahs, they aren't animals that will often go and look for water. Something like a lion, those lions that we saw earlier, often if they have a big meal, and go look for water to drink, so it will help with digestion and all of that. But these cheetahs, they often get all their blood from the carcass that they kill. I mean, if they are walking on the road and they see a puddle, they'll most likely drink from it, but they're not going to go out of their way to try and find water. And with all those rains that we've had here on Phinda, there's pretty much puddles all over the show, so if they are wanting water, they don't have to walk too far away from this area where they are now. Bruce, so I know when we did start filming these cheetah, there were 5 of them. So the one cheetah, we suspect that the one cheetah got taken out by the pride of lions, potentially even that pride of lions that we saw, because we knew where they were in the evening, and then the next morning we went to that exact same spot and we saw lion tracks around there. So we do suspect that the one got killed by lions. And I mean, lions, they'll often take out cheetah just because, I mean, it's a threat to them, like it's competition, rather, I should say. Because they're feeding off the same things, they're in the same territories and all of that. So that's why lions will kill cheetah. And they won't feed off them, they'll often just kill them and then move off. And then the other cheetah, we saw that it had very, very bad limp. So here on Phinda, we're very conservation aware. And so what we did is we called in the vet, and the vet came and had a look. And so we decided to dart the cheetah, and they took some x-rays of, I think it was the back leg. And we found out that the cheetah had broken its leg in 2 separate spots. And we asked the vet if it was able to operate and to potentially fix that leg. And he said that it's most likely not going to work. And so we took the drastic measure in euthanizing that cheetah, just because it wasn't going to survive. It wasn't going to live a good life with that limp. And we decided there and then to then euthanize that cheetah. I mean, it is the last resort that we want to do, just because cheetahs are so vulnerable, and there's not too many of them left. I mean, there's about 7,000 cheetah left within the wild, and here on Phinda we are trying to conserve them as much as possible. So we'll go to all extents to try and save cheetah. So yeah, it was a very sad day on Phinda that we had to do that, but I think it was the best thing for that particular cheetah at that time. But we are hoping, and we're very positive that these 3 cheetah that we're looking at right now are hopefully going to survive and grow up to be strong, independent cheetahs. So I mean, it's amazing. It will hopefully be an amazing story if we do happen to see them grow up and maybe even potentially have cubs on Phinda. It'll be an amazing conservation story. It does seem like the cheetah have started to rest a little bit. I can see one of them has put their heads down. I think this is most likely going to be the spot where these cheetah rest for the rest of the evening. So I think for now, we're going to leave these cheetahs. They seem like they are resting in this open area here. I think they're most likely going to spend the rest of the afternoon into the evening here. But we're going to continue and see what else we can find. But for now, we're going to send you over to Tristan.
Right, well, we're still on the search for any signs of our spotty friends. For Jenny, hopefully they'll make an appearance and not let me down. So far, very, very, very quiet this afternoon. The guys on Little Gallery and Nets and all of those areas also haven't found much. So we're trying hard. I know there's also guys in Torchwood looking for Tundi and Marips. So everybody's kind of trying to cover every base at this stage. And hopefully they'll make an emergence now while we still have a little bit of light. We know that Tundi sometimes can be tricky to find. Although of late she's been good to us. I mean, we've been lucky, I must be honest, with the 2 of them. They've really been around a lot more than the past. I'm sure, like me, a lot of you at home have really enjoyed getting to know little Marips a lot better. And to see how much he's changed and developed in terms of this cat that is now completely indifferent to our presence, whereas before he was obviously a little bit shy, a little bit wary, but in the last 4 months, maybe 3 months, he's really changed completely, and he's now like this crazy little cat that runs around. And my favorite part about him is his love of water for some reason. He has zero fear of water. He's just like puts his paws in the water. I had him the other day where he literally face planted the riverbed. He was just like boom, and his whole face was covered in sand and water, but he didn't seem to mind too much at all. So I'm really hoping we can find him this afternoon. It'll just be such a nice way to spend the rest of our afternoon. any time spent with a leopard in general is pretty good.
Definitely. And lion for me.
And you're a big lion fan as well.
Huge lion fan.
And cheetahs, where do they stand in the big
Cheetahs,
cats?
I love them. I love them all equally, but just I have seen one cheetah since I've been here, which
That's very
has been awesome. One of the dominant males in the west, so very special.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so the lions, favourite lion then?
Favourite lion of all time, hairy belly Matimba male.
And you got to see him?
I did. I got to have 3 incredible sightings with him, which was really
He's
special.
looking old
Just
now.
want to let everyone know that he's doing really well. Just obviously being, you know, an older lion, but you know, I look at it that it was such a privilege to see a lion of his age being sort of approaching 16 years of age, free, still alive in the wild. It's really incredible.
We were actually having this conversation last night, Steph and myself and the GM of Djuma, Michelle. We were chatting about how that he must be one of the oldest male lions in the Sabi Sands ever, you know, in terms of how old he's gotten to. Not every day that a male lion gets to that age. It's a testament to A, his genes and his ability to stay alive, and B, to, you know, the fact that he's obviously found a place that is safe and has kind of managed to, you know, skirt the issue of other male lions. So clever as well as resilient, makes for an amazing kind of story. You know, the first time I saw him was just where we were just now at the dam, close to the dam there, up the road on Ngari Main, and that was in beginning of 2012.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's 9 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy that he's still going.
Yeah.
But you know, it's one of those things. I mean, when you and I remember we had this conversation when Mvula was around and he eventually passed away. It's sad when you see them because you can see that they're coming to the end of their life.
Yes.
You know, they're starting to wilt away a little bit, and they really aren't as impressive as they were in their prime. But for me, the amazing part about those sightings and what makes it special is that you're with an animal that in the modern day world, and I suppose in many ways the Hukumari incident highlights this, is that the pressure on wildlife and this, you know, the human population expansion that we're going through means that lions and any other animal really out here is you know, their ranges are restricted and they're under pressure as species, you know. So anytime you can sit and watch an animal grow out through its life and die from a natural death based off old age is a very, very, very special thing. And I know it's hard for people to see it, and I know it's hard to understand, but in many ways that brings more of a smile to my face that this animal's had this opportunity to live.
And Tristan, that's exactly how I felt in that sighting. It was such a privilege to be with this beautiful old king that just think of the lineage that's out there.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
Of the Matimba males, even looking at these little Nkahuma cubs that are grand little Matimbas, you know.
Exactly, that's exactly it. You know?
It's special.
It is very special when you get to see. I'm glad you got to see him too, because you know, I don't know how much longer he's going to be around for. You know, the reality is, as much as we love all of these animals out here, and Tandi's another one. You know, that's her time is. She's gone past the prime of her life. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. It's, as much as you don't want to say those words, me particularly, I don't want to say those words. She's one of my favorites. That is just how life works for these animals, is that their lifespan is shorter than what ours is. And it means that we have to accept that as much as we get all the amazing stuff, that there is going to be an end point. You know, in Tandi's case, even if she was to, you know, not have another set of cubs and she passes away fairly kind of soon from now, she still would have lived this incredible life. You know, she's done an amazing amount of time and she's produced how many different offspring. And that's the celebration, is in that these animals have been provided a protected area where they can survive, thrive, and impart so much in the way of understanding for us of the species.
Yeah,
you know, so.
Very special.
All right, so favorite male lion, hairy belly, and females? Pride or Pride?
Pride, actually, females is from the Western Sabi Sands.
Yeah.
Daughters of the Mopojos, it would be the Ottawa. The Ottawas, yes. And then again, those two girls that they call the mother of the junior Ottawa sub-adult and auntie. They're again very coming to that age of
getting old
of their life in being quite elderly, but very special to spend time with the Ottawa girls and see the sub-adults there. But then, of course, I've being here in the northern Sabi Sands, I've spent a lot of time with the Djuma Pride. I mean, that's family.
Exactly.
That's family.
That is family.
That's family, and all the Aroka boys.
Family that's going to get a stern talking to soon because they don't come visit us enough. It's like the family that moves overseas and doesn't come visit.
You're just aching, like,
exactly.
No, they look good, and it was funny. We were chatting before about my sightings and seeing. I saw it made me laugh. It's very typical, but I saw the purple-eyed lion babysitting Amber Eyes' cubs.
Exactly.
And Amber was off sort of towards Mala area, and yep, there's purple light with her cubs and Ambers. That's,
typical Amber Eyes, you know? It's like I was saying to you, businesswoman. She's like, I've got stuff to do. Purple Eye, you're going to look after the kids. I'll be back. Don't worry. It's all good. So that's awesome that you got to see them. And I know that you had a bit of a sad sighting in seeing one of the Nku, and a lot of people have asked me about the Nku injured.
Yes, so it was very sad. It was, so there was calling coming from, I think, again, towards into that sort of Marthley, Londolozi, Mala area. And Purple Eye, this is when she was with these cubs and got up and started moving, and her two cubs went. And then it was this little one that was following, but may potentially be Chella's cub. And just walking with a very severe limp. Don't know if it was broken. To me, nothing was sort of dangling as such, but just that there was no weight bearing on one of the back legs at all. But it was.
Okay, I mean,
it was really sad.
The one good thing with that is that she's part of a pride. Still young, so has got lots of time to recover. And you know, a lot of people often see these wild animals and think, you know, broken leg, death sentence. But when they're smaller like that, because of the amount of growth that's taking place, often those bones will heal fairly well. And there was, if you ever doubt that, the story of the Talamati cub is always try and kind of sell this to people to show the resilience of lions and wildlife in particular. But this Talamati lion was, when it was tiny still, they found these tracks, and the guys thought it had been a python that had tried to grab the cub. And that's what they thought had happened. But eventually, after tracking it for a while, they found this little cub, and it was dragging itself on two legs. So it looked like it had a completely paralyzed back, and it had like this damage to its leg, and it just didn't look good at all. And that cub now, if you see it, you would never know. It's the one that's missing the tip of the tail.
And I saw her this morning. I saw her this morning.
And you see, like, absolutely fine, walking well, part of the pride. So as long as they can get access to food, and there's others that will defend them from potential threats. So, you know, as long as mom is around and aunts, and they can keep hyenas at bay, and that little cub might make a recovery that will surprise everybody.
And what I had heard from the previous lodge that I'd stayed at, that apparently she was keeping up with the pride.
Okay.
So,
well, there we go. I mean, that's already a big positive, you know. So as long as that cub has the strength.
And the lionesses were around her. And,
to keep up with the pride, then the chances of survival is actually a lot higher than people realize. It's so difficult to see it, though, because you think, oh, this poor little cub.
It's,
you know, it's in pain, but unfortunately, that is the nature of a wild animal. They have a hard existence out here, particularly for lions and hyenas. They have far less self-preservation than what a leopard does. A leopard will shy away from most things to try and kind of stop getting injured. So they're very calculating and clever in that regard. But lions, you know, they compete heavily at carcasses, and so even when they're not trying to hurt each other, they can. You know, there can be eye injuries, there can be front paw injuries by they swat out and the other one bites them or something like that. So you've got a lot of those factors that happen with them, and then obviously in hyenas' case, we know they're just crazy and can take a beating second to none. So, you know, when you see these injuries, they often look a lot harsher, and for us as humans would be really big catastrophic problems. But for these animals, they don't have the ability to go to a hospital, set the bone, sit on their couch for a few months. They just got to ride it out, and either it heals, or unfortunately, you know, they succumb to the injury via whatever happens to them. So it's sad, but it's part of being out here. But it's nice to have an update, because obviously for us, we don't necessarily get enough updates about them, and it's difficult to always piece the information together. So having you tell us firsthand is very good. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Very special. They're very special to see the Nkuhumas, and and Blondie and Mohawk sticking together. And then again with Blondie, I know a lot of people concerned about him, and he's looking a bit frail and thin, but the limp is still there, but not had a nice full belly when I saw them.
Okay,
yeah, cool. they'd all fed well, so it was. He was looking good.
I mean, we were chatting earlier as well, and I've spoken about this a lot lately. Is the breaking up of the prides based off the numbers? So it's like the numbers are getting too big now. So they are struggling, all of them, to find enough food to sustain themselves repeatedly, day in, day out. And that's, I think, part of why the evokers are looking a little bit thinner. Even the lionesses, it's summer now. A lot of the animals are much stronger. It's hard conditions for a lion to be thriving in right now. But they'll bounce back. They're, like I say, they are seriously resilient animals. I remember we had a lioness down in Lion Sands, and I've told this story before too. She had a dislocated leg, completely hanging.
Wow.
And a year later, she was walking on all four legs.
It's amazing.
Like she never had a problem, So
yeah, look at the Birmingham young male.
Exactly. From
his recovery is phenomenal. Yeah.
Exactly. So these things are possible to kind of heal, and as long as they've got the pride around, then generally the chances are that much better. Fit for kind of for Tundi and the cub because of where we are. This is a place that they also spend time. Hopefully we'll have a bit of luck.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
The reason why we see that wildebeest by himself is because he's a male, or a bull, as we typically would call him. And what he does is that he marks and defends an area. Essentially, he is looking for the ultimate piece of land or prime property. Needs to have good grazing, needs to have a water source close by. And not too far away from here, there's a sickle bush thicket that would provide just enough shelter from the wind and the rain.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at WildEarth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed. Hello, Mama. Just checking us out, everybody. There's no aggression here. Very relaxed. A herd of elephants moving around your car like that is truly, truly magical.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite animal in the Kalahari has to be the aardvark. Its unique appearance, its ethology, and as well as ecology within this vast ecosystem is amazing, and something that I have been really lucky to experience on foot here at Tswalu.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth.
There's still no sign of our spotty cats of Cheetah. I suspect just maybe she's on a kill somewhere and they are together. That's maybe why we haven't picked up anything. Normally he's quite mobile, so he moves around quite a lot, and if he's in an area you'll find his tracks somewhere. But if they're on a kill, then obviously that negates a lot of the movement of him. I'm just trying to find, there's an old 2-track road. Is it here? I think think it is here. Yes, it is here. That goes through this little area here, and I want to just take this because I know that they've been spending a lot of time in this section. There's impalas, so that's not necessarily that encouraging. But they've been spending a lot of time in this little block since it's been flooded in the Mulawanini. They've been hanging out in here rather. So I just want to double check. Yesterday morning, I think it was. Was it yesterday morning? I don't even remember if I was on drive yesterday morning, but there was tracks. One of my last drives that I did, not yesterday afternoon, there was tracks for Tandi in this area kind of coming into the block here. So I was wondering if maybe she didn't just leave little Marips here somewhere and he's just taking it easy and chilling, and she'll pop out. Or he'll pop out if we just drive through, check some of these trees. This time of the day, I would expect him to be up on a mound or somewhere there. Vicky, do leopards ever hunt in pairs? I've never personally seen a cooperative leopard hunt where it's actually confirmed as being cooperative. I've seen two leopards in the same place after a kill has been made, but never a cooperative leopard hunt, if that makes sense. So no is the kind of 90% answer, but there is always rules that are broken, and wildlife doesn't stick to rules. We know that with particularly leopards. The one instance where I wish that I could have seen what had taken place was an instance where I had Tingana mating with Moya, and we had tracked them all morning, and they were walking, mating, and we just couldn't catch up with them. The more we drove, the more they kind of moved. And eventually we decided, the guests kind of got, tired of this tracking process. And they were like, let's just stop for our morning coffee. And it seemed like a good idea because we could listen. Obviously, mating has got a huge amount of vocalizing to it. So if you stop, you hear them, it's also easier. And in that space, we kind of heard some commotion, and we went driving as soon as we packed up, and we found Tingana standing over a giraffe, a young giraffe, and Moya next to him. So whether the two were involved in the kill, I don't know, but they were both there, they both fed off it, and they were both standing next to the carcass. So I honestly don't know whether or not they cooperatively hunt, but if that was the case, that's the only time I've ever kind of had an inkling that it might be possible. Generally, you just don't see that kind of behavior from leopards. They don't have the dynamic where they spend enough time together to understand each other's hunting abilities. When you look at something like a lion, the pride is closely bonded, they're together, they spend a lot of time in one another's company, and that allows them to be able to understand subtle body language that helps in the hunt, and they practice that over and over and over again, whereas leopards don't. Their kind of whole structure is not designed for that kind of hunting. It's more an ambush sort of predator in many respects. Jenny, any other questions that you might have for us this afternoon?
Oh, gee.
You had the Asana question.
Little chief question.
You can think about it. You don't have to ask me right now.
Yeah,
if you have a question, you're welcome to.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. How are you doing? Good, and yourself? Good. Yeah, I heard so. Thanks, man. Cool. Cheers, guys. So, just getting an update quickly from one of the other vehicles. They just were letting us know about the dogs and where they went. This afternoon has been more about trying to find one of our swatty cats.
I have a question, Tristan.
Yes.
What season is your most favourite to guide in?
To guide in?
Yes.
My favourite season to guide in is spring.
Okay.
It's very short, but it is well worth it. So late September, early October. And there's a reason for it is that generally you're at your driest point in the year. So congregation of animals is much better. Roads are quite dry, bush is quite dry, so tracking is a little easier. So your game viewing tends to pick up a little bit in that period.
Okay.
But also what happens is that even if you do get a little bit of early rain, you start to see the transitions taking place. So migratory birds are starting to arrive. The bush is starting to go from that drab brown dead feel to starting to come alive again. So that's why I like that period. Also a lot of young animals at that time of the year. So So it's a nice time to be in the bush. It also is really dependent on where you're going. So that's for here in the Sabi Sands. If I was going to say something like East Africa, it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. So if you're going for migration, are you going Tanzania or Kenya? Because that'll dictate times that you're there and which sort of season you want to be there. And that's pretty typical of a lot of the reserves. So like Mana Pools also September, October, really good time. Delta is actually a little bit earlier than that. You want to be there more in the winter months, and the Delta as the flood levels or the channels start to rise. That's really a nice time to be there. So yeah, it's really just dependent on the venue, but for me here in the Sabi Sands, September, October.
Okay.
Yeah. I like summer. I do like this time because I enjoy birds. And I enjoy the kind of insect life that we have from a sort of bushwalk point of view. But from a spending time with leopards point of view, it's severely inhibits our ability to do that. So.
I know that I've seen more lions on my trip than leopards. So I've seen quite a few, but I've had incredible, I've had very good leopard sightings too, but definitely spent more time with lions.
Been crazy busy of late. Even here, the lion activity has really increased, which is nice, but the downside of a lot of lions is that the leopard numbers tend to just taper a little bit. The leopards, when they hear lions roaring and they see lions and evidence of lions a lot, they typically move off. And I actually suspect the other day we had the Nkahumas on a kill here on Cheetah Open, and there were tracks for Tandi in the area. So I have a theory that maybe it was, sorry, there's a big branch that came up, I thought it was a snake. Maybe it was Tandi's kill that was taken from her, because it was right at the base of the Marula. So, if that's the case, then she's immediately going to go and find her cover and move out. She's going to go and reposition and try and just stay away from the lions as much as possible. I think if you leopard viewing wise, the drier, the easier it is to find them for sure. It's, now it's, as you've seen with the number of the cats that you've seen, they take it 2 steps into the long grass and it's just like gone,
Stalking impala and then
gone, exactly. So even in an area like this, once they just get off the road, your chances of being able to actually follow them is so compromised.
That's true.
Because of how wet it is at the moment. That's not to say that you don't get good sightings. I just find that the leopard sightings now, while you might see a lot of them, the quality and the length of the sighting is generally far more reduced than what it is in those drier periods. That's why it's a high season, like people come in the winter months because of it.
Or if they're up for a challenge like me, come in the rainy season. When they've had the most rainfall in record time.
It's been a serious amount of rainfall since you've been here, that's for sure, because you arrived just as the cyclone hit.
Yeah, started at Ngala and
this is what is known as an elephant roadblock right here.
There we go.
So we're going to do a little bit of creative maneuvering and go around it. It's tricky in these conditions. Sophie, you're asking if a leopard's coat change or a big cat's coat changes with the seasons. So you do see a slight thickening of the coat. I feel like the hair just gets a little longer. You might not get that much more than noticeable. Our conditions here in South Africa are very much they're not that bad, let's be honest. It does get cold, no doubt, and this year will be cold in this winter due to the amount of water. It's going to be a lot cooler than it was last year, but it's not crazy. Very seldom do we have temperatures that go below 5 degrees Celsius in this area, and we have very, very kind of moderate days that are in the mid to high 20s in our winter. So it's not a huge need for big cats to have a coat that changes a lot. They can do just fine off coats that they've got, even in the sort of colder days that we have. But there is a slight lengthening and thickening of the coat. It's not much, but it is there. Just going slow through this block. It's a difficult block to get through. I can't believe this termite mound on my right-hand side. I don't know if you were watching when we had a sighting of Tingana once where he went down and disappeared in the water, in the burrow, and he didn't come out for a long time.
And he turned around in the hole.
Yeah, and then he came out and he was all dusty.
Yeah.
That's this termite mound. And remember then there was not a single blade of grass on it. So this mound has changed completely. Yeah, it was just around the back here. It's just crazy to see what this mound looks like now. It's definitely not being used anymore. There's no sign of any entrance or exits from anything. But yeah, it's crazy to think that that's where it was. Okay, we're going to carry on. Hopefully we're going to find one of our cats. In the meantime, let's send you across to Phinda.
Welcome back, everybody. We've come back to these lines and look what we have. Male lion moving around a little bit. He's just moving into the drainage line on the right-hand side of us where that buffalo carcass is. But how beautiful, look at all the cubs out in the open. And as it is getting a little bit cooler here at Phinda, starting to get a little bit dark, you can see the cubs. They might even start moving towards that buffalo carcass. Maybe that male is going to go feed and these cubs might even join him. It'll be quite incredible after the afternoon we've had with these lions to see them move towards that carcass. Yeah, beautiful. Look at that, all lying down together. I think they're also quite inquisitive of where that male's gone. They know that there's a carcass there, and they might not want to get too close while mom's just lying down. But maybe if they hear that crunching of the bones, eating the meat, maybe even tearing the meat off the bone, that they might start to go towards that carcass. But I mean, looking at them, they all do have very, very full stomachs. But as youngsters, they'll be able to feed all the time. And I mean, since we've left them, I asked some of the other rangers, they haven't gone to the carcass. So this would be a perfect time for them to maybe get their early evening snack. And I can hear the flies around that buffalo carcass. It's just off into the drainage line on our right-hand side. I can see the other male has just got up a little bit further ahead of this other vehicle. Maybe he's going to come and join this male. Should we try and reposition? I'm going to move back a little bit, see if we can try get towards the carcass where the male lion is feeding. Just if you bear with me for 2 seconds, see if we can go get a view of this male lion feeding on this buffalo carcass. And it'll be nice to show you all, see if we can see this buffalo. It is in quite a tough position to get a vehicle to, just to be able to see, but let's go give it a try. I'll just take it nice and slowly as we drive around to set a view. I can see the other male on the other side also. I'm just going to drop into this drainage line a little bit and potentially see if we can get a little bit of a view. Get a little view in the way of the buffalo, because he's almost in a little drainage line where there's a little bit of water, and that's where this buffalo may have even died. Oh, it's got a bit of a hairball. And it'll be nice to see. I can just see the other male is just behind the bush, moving a little bit. He's giving a the bush a little bit. He's giving a the bush a little bit. He's giving a
Hi, I'm Sue. I'm from South Africa and I'm the incredibly lucky winner of the Tswalu competition. Tswalu has so much to offer, but we're really looking forward to the game viewing options, as going out with a personal guide who has so much knowledge will just be exceptional. Motsi Lodge looks absolutely amazing and we're so looking forward to spending time there. It really is out of this world. I only registered as an explorer towards the end of January, so when the email arrived stating that I was the winner, it took me totally by surprise. I'd just like to thank WildEarth and Tswalu for this most incredible prize. It really is a dream come true.
WildEarth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Our bodies are made up of about 60% water, which means that in a very short space of time, you can dehydrate completely. A relatively efficient way of collecting water early in the morning is to take an absorbent material like a sock and to walk through the grass, absorbing the condensed dewdrops on the grass. Once the material is saturated, you can then squeeze it out into a container, or you can suck it out directly into your mouth.
Hi everyone, my name's Daniel Fisher and I'm going to be your guide this afternoon. I'm looking really forward to taking you through and showing you all the beautiful places here at andBeyond in Ngala. If you have any questions, please register on our website. Once registered, go to the live page feed and post your questions underneath the live feed. Join me on my next safari through andBeyond in Ngala on WildEarth. Send me live questions through the WildEarth website and I'll answer them live from the African bush.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Welcome back everybody. Sorry we lost the picture there, but these males have now, they're both on the carcass. They're actually trying to drag the carcass as we speak. I mean, you can see the buffalo there, you can just see the hoof up, and the male's been moving around quite a lot to see where he can go and get the best angle to feed off this buffalo. You can see he's almost indecisive of where to go. It seems like they're actually almost trying to drag the carcass out of this little wallow. Because, I mean, they want to be able to feed in the most comfortable spot possible. You can see him now coming down. Oh, he almost slipped there. Look at that. Male lion on a buffalo. Maybe he's going to try open up the carcass there on the shoulder. Yeah. He's using that almost razor-like tongue to try and take off all the hair, even try and maybe grate the skin away a little bit to try and then bite through the carcass. Yeah, so if you are a sensitive viewer, for now, I would just look away for a little bit. It might get a little bit gory as we go on if he does start to open up this carcass. It's quite incredible. You can even hear all the flies. As this male lion moved the carcass a little bit, I could hear all the flies go off the carcass and fly around. I'm going to keep quiet for a little bit, see if we can hear that male lion licking the carcass. You can hear he's actually trying to dig his teeth into the carcass. Let me keep quiet a little bit more. Look at he's using his claws. You can see the other male's trying to get exactly where this male is. But if he does try and open again, I'm going to just keep quiet and just listen. Maybe even turn your volume up a little bit on your TV. Or he just dipped his paw into the water. Yeah, the male's trying to come from this side now. And you hear his paws swishing around in the water. And you can see he doesn't like that. When he put his paws in, tried to move the carcass, and then decided, no, that's not the best option. Yeah, he's going to walk past the camera now. He's just smelling the ground, not too far from us, and you can hear the crunching of the bones. You can see now this male, this is the other male trying the same approach as the other male was. Oh, oh! Sorry about that, he fell into the water, the carcass moved. And he's not having fun right now. Not a happy male lion at the moment. He knows that there's nice big buffalo there for him, but he just can't get the right position. Maybe now that he's wet, he'll just decide to go in. It's amazing sometimes in nature just to keep quiet and just listen what's happening around. I mean, you can hear him using his carnassial shears to crunch through the bones, hear the water swishing. Yeah, they are basically like can openers. I think they're much sharper than can openers, but that's exactly what they're doing. Can openers are used for cans, but these male lions, their teeth are adapted to be able to open up carcasses such as this buffalo. It's quite amazing, I mean, to see the claws come out when they put their feet onto the buffalo, and to hear that noise, that crunching of the bone, trying to open up a carcass. And I mean, I can just see the one on the right hand side. It's quite tough to see, but he's feeding from the rump, from the back end up. And that meat's been in the water, there's been a lot of flies and things on it. And the male lion on the left, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get to the freshest meat. I mean, that meat around the shoulder, maybe even up to the neck. As you can imagine, a big buffalo bull like this, lots of meat around the neck, and the skin is all intact there. So as soon as he does open it, that meat is going to be probably the freshest meat on this carcass for now. It hasn't been in the water, it hasn't been getting toasted by the sun. So that's exactly what he's trying to go for. It is also starting to get quite dark here at andBeyond Phinda, and where we are is surrounded by trees and things, so we are starting to slowly lose light. The male's had enough on the left-hand side. It almost looks and sounds like they're getting a little bit frustrated that they can't get to that carcass. But I mean, the more they eat, the better it is, because once they eat a little bit more, they are then able to grab the carcass and potentially move it out of the water. And so if you can hear the vehicles moving around, it's just in such a tough spot, and everyone's trying to get a better view of these lions feeding. Leopard girl, it really just depends. I mean, I think personally I would say that these lions would most likely be here for, I would say, another 3 or 4 days. A buffalo to sustain a pride of these lions, so it's 2 males, a lioness and their cubs, I think most likely 3 or 4 days from now they'll be still here, I think. And I mean, lions, they'll feed on rotten meat, they're able to digest pretty much anything. So, I mean, even if it does become very hot, oh, there's the lioness. She's just come, she just came in and the male almost chased her off. But I think she maybe wants to come get a piece of meat. But yeah, I would say probably 4 days would be a good amount of time here. I know they have been here for 2 days, for 6 days with these particular lions, but depending on the amount of lions in a pride, that would depend on how long they would be able to feed on it for. I mean, a pride up in the Sabi Sands, say that's 22 lions, maybe 25 lions, they might feed on a buffalo for 2 days and then be done with it, just because they've got many more mouths to feed. So I think for now, these lions, they are still feeding, but it is a very, very tough view. I think we're going to leave these lions to feed into the night. Maybe we can even come back in the morning and see what they're up to. But we're going to send you over to Tristan, see what he's got.
Well, it sounds like Chad's had a decent afternoon with the lions at Phinda. Sounds like a good sighting. Fortunately, we've had very little luck this afternoon. All we've managed to attract so far is a lot of rain, but at least the company's been good, and we've had some quality conversations, which is always nice. It's nice when we have someone on board when it's quiet like this and we can talk about all kinds of random stuff, especially the histories of some of our favorite cats. I've thoroughly enjoyed my afternoon, regardless of the quietness of it so far. But yeah, there's been really so few updates. The only really interesting update that we just got now was that I'm pretty sure it was Langa that was seen earlier crossing out of Djuma, but she went apparently towards Hofmann's, and the guys were telling us now that she was sawing, which is interesting. And I suspect that if it is her and she is sawing properly, it's not because she's trying to be territorial. I think she's trying to find her mom. Her mom has not been with them for a long period now. It's been sort of 2 weeks since I think that mom was seen anywhere near either of the cubs. And we know that whenever we've seen Sabui with the cubs, Langa's always very close to her. She's always kind of tucked up and near mom. So I wonder if she's not just missing her mother a little bit and just trying to desperately find her, because life on one's own is not as easy as when mom looks up and looks out for you. So that may be why her calls are getting more desperate and louder, and why it sounds like she's almost sawing. I would be very, very, very shocked and surprised if she was trying to be territorial. I mean, we saw with Kalamba how long it took Kalamba to start sawing after Thandi left her. She just tried to find her place in the world for a while. So I don't think she would have been triggered yet into getting into a proper kind of territorial display like sawing. And if she does, it's, you know, it's attracting attention from her. Sorry, little spider. Maybe I can get back far enough before we break its web. There's a little green pea spider. No, the jack unfortunately stuck to the web. Sorry, little spider.
Aww.
You can just make it out. Kind of cruising there. I don't know, David, if you can see it. It might be quite tricky with the camera to see, but there's a little green pea spider. You can see why they're called green pea spiders, because of that bright green luminous abdomen that they've got. But it had just built its web and I only saw it too late. I was busy looking in a tree to my right, so we unfortunately nicked the web and it stuck to the high lift jack, so it damaged a little bit. But that's okay. These guys do build their webs pretty quickly. We saw it last night with a bark spider, how fast the web building process goes. And ultimately, the web itself has come off the jack. Has it? Oh, no, it's still stuck there a little bit. I'm just going to go back a bit, just so that I can get the web off, so that if it needs to, it can just kind of salvage from the web itself, and then be able to rebuild. It's the problem at this time of the year when we come into the summer months. These poor spiders, they build on the roads because it's a big open pathway, and a lot of the time roads and pathways house a lot of insect activity and traffic that will promote insect activity. I'm just going to see if it's going to go up into the tree. There we go, it's just following one of its anchor lines. And from here, once we go, it will balloon across again. So how these guys work is they do what's called ballooning. So they'll attach a piece of silk and then basically drop down with it, and the wind carries them over the road to the next little anchor point, and they attach the silk there again, and then they're able to start going back and forth and being able to actually build a really nice web. Okay, so I want to just do this area around Treehouse again. We'll check sort of central Djuma, any sign of Kalamba. As we were saying right in the beginning, Jenny was wanting to see Kalamba. It's her favorite, so this is, if we're going to find her, it's going to be around this section, I think. I don't know what the effect Sabi's little interaction with her is going to have in terms of where she's going to go, or if it's not going to make any difference at all. I think time will only tell as to whether or not they become in any way affected by either of them, by the presence of the other one, or if they'll just still continue to patrol those boundaries. With Shadulu and Kalamba, she certainly didn't seem to be too phased. She's still walking around in quarantine and is not too worried about that interaction she had with Shadulu the other day. It's going to be nice when winter rolls around and the roads soften and we can start to track again a lot more through the blocks and to start having a much better understanding of where our cats are actually spending a lot of their time. At the moment, it's very tricky because they go into the blocks and we're not 100% sure on the routes that they're using. Often people ask about how we manage to find these cats as often as we do, and a lot of it is just from understanding the pattern and understanding the route that they like to walk. Once you understand that, you're narrowing down your field of search massively. You know the pathways that you're checking, and then as you drive, you're not only scanning kind of on the road, but you'll check a pathway because you know that leopard uses it, and often that alerts you to a track or something like that. And so the winter months will give us a much better idea of what's going to be happening within our leopard community. On top of that, as everything dries out again, so they're going to have to start using water holes rather than what it is now, where they're just drinking from seep lines and random little elephant sort of pits that are in the bush. It's really going to become a lot more kind of dependent on water, and that allows us then to figure out the exact patterns that are taking place. I mean, we have rough ideas at the moment of where certain... Another second. There's tracks here for, looks like lions that have walked here since we drove here this afternoon.
Wow.
Yeah, looks like 2 or 3 lionesses. Let's just follow these quickly and see if we find them. But these are definitely on top of our vehicle tracks from this morning. You can see them walking up the road here. I'm sure they're not going to be far. There was a lot of buffalo around the area, so maybe they're trailing the buffalo, or we're trying to hunt the buffalo at one point and they've now emerged. They're definitely mobile, so I'm interested to see who this is. Maybe it's those 3 Nkuhumas we had a few days ago, yesterday morning, because they would have been moving in this direction. See, I can smell those buffalo now already. I don't see any tracks with these lions anymore. Oh no, they're still going. Tracks for the lions are still going. It gets really tricky now to track in the dark. It becomes quite tough. Alright Jenny, let's see if we can find you these guys quickly. So it just goes to show when you're out at night, just because it's dark doesn't mean you must stop paying attention to tracks. They still help you heavily when it comes to being able to locate these guys. These tracks are very fresh. They're right on the road. Yeah, I reckon these lines can't be too far. Hoping we're going to bump them on Phinda's cut line here. Just moving. Maddie, who's 9 years old, you want to know how many lions are living on Djuma. So, Maddie, it changes. Lions on Djuma move around quite a bit. They don't always stay in the exact same place. They like to try and find as big an area as possible to go and walk around in. And so some days we might have 16 lions on Djuma. Some days we have none. It just really depends. But basically, Maddie, we see 3 different prides on our Djuma traverse, and that is essentially the Nkuhuma pride, the Torchwood pride, and the Talamati pride. And those 3 prides then have males that look after them, which is called the Avoca males. So I'm just trying to check the tracks now carefully. I'm thinking they've gone on this road here, but it's difficult to see, obviously, because of the time of day. Yes, they've walked, yeah. Okay, so there they are, in the road. So we found them.
Nice. My girl.
Okay, so David's going to go into infrared, so you'll see that the light will change and we will change color as well. But I knew the tracks were looking very, very fresh. When you start to see tracks like this on the road, you know that they're not far. I suspect that it's the Nkuhuma lionesses. Where we are is classic Nkuhuma route that they're taking, and I'm pretty sure, judging by the tracks, that there's 3 of them.
Oh, wow.
Which would be the same 3 that I had yesterday morning, which was, it looked like one of Ridgenos's cubs from 2016 and the tattered-eared lioness that were in that group yesterday. But we guys will double check and we'll be able to see. There we go, Jenny. So Nkuhumas is not the worst. I mean, you said you're a fan of lions. It's not Kalamba, but at least it's really nice to see these guys. It just goes to show we must have driven past them this afternoon at some point. Yes, there's definitely 3 of them.
Yeah. Yay. Thank you.
No problem.
That's awesome.
It's so cool. Like, it's one of my favorite things is when you see a track and then you follow it. It's like that anticipation and build-up of excitement, and then eventually that kind of pay off when you come around the corner. And you can see how they're smelling where these buffalo were. Also, this is where Trish had the wild dogs and the hyenas this morning. So I wouldn't be surprised that that's what they're also picking up, is the scent of the wild dogs. The wild dogs ran this afternoon in this direction towards Arethusa and were found on Arethusa. So they could also be following that. It's not uncommon for cats to follow the scent of dogs. You see it sometimes with male leopards, and they actually then pilfer from the dogs themselves. So,
can I ask Tristan, one of these Nkuhuma lionesses, is it one of the younger lionesses that Mohawk Avoca was giving a hard time to? Sort of that had left with the Nkuhuma young male, like his sister? I just wondered if this was...
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
And if she's back with the pride, yeah.
So that whole process happens quite a while ago, obviously, because, you know, that. And then since then, I've seen so little of the Nkuhumas. I actually have very little idea of who's been moving where. But potentially, I mean, we'll turn it out to the viewers as well to try and see if they can ID who we've got. It's tricky in this light. But yeah, it could be one of them.
Just wondering. Yeah. I know she was sort of not with the Pride, back with the Pride, and
yeah, she was all over the place at one point. Shame, she had a tough time. She tried to cling on to her brother a little bit, and then when he obviously went off towards Singita, she didn't want to follow that far and kind of came back to the Pride. But I'm just going to go forward a little bit because the other two are just in front, but they look like they're going to cut off now. I think they've just heard something. Their entire demeanor has changed, the front two. Like they've spotted something or heard something. I don't know if maybe the buffalo are still around. It's possible because they were on Kalahari Main this morning. They definitely are moving quickly through this block. Now, normally if buffalo are close by, you hear them. I don't hear anything. I'm just going to try and see if I can get the spotlight on where the other two have gone. They've already disappeared into the thickets here. This one's going as well. Alright, so let's just try and keep up with them. I always a little wary of following hunting lions at night. You don't really want to give their position away if they're hunting something that's quite observant. So buffalo aren't very observant, but things like kudu, waterbuck, they hear the cars and they just know straight away that they need to kind of be careful. So I just want to double check when we're going through here. You will see that my lights are on because otherwise I'm going to get myself into a lot of trouble and probably smash some sort of part of the car if I don't have lights on in this thicket. So I just need to double check because this area is very close to a seep line. So I just need to make sure that it's not too wet out here. Just careful on your side there, Jenny.
Got this one.
I think we're all right for now.
Yep.
I've lost them already. Where they've gone. And this is, Jenny and I were having this conversation earlier about leopards and how they disappear in 2 seconds when they go off the grass, but you can see now with lionesses it can happen too. I don't know where they've gone now. General direction is the way that I'm traveling. It smells very much like buffalo in here, so I don't know. Maybe that's what they're picking up on as well. Where did you girls go? I'm just going to turn a little bit this way in case they turned. Almost looks like that one lioness was cutting kind of back in the direction that we came. You'd think that we had gotten past them already. Jerome, yeah, some leopards will. If they don't want to be found or if they're skittish, they will avoid the cars. Anything that's not that habituated, so we're going to have to just drop our antenna here, sorry, Darby, will immediately try and kind of get away. So a lot of the nocturnal species, so things like porcupines, aardvarks, caracals, servals, they often will try and avoid the vehicles. They hear it coming. You can see with these lions, I mean, they were just plodding along the road. They're not worried about the noise of the car. They would have gone off the road long before and we wouldn't have seen them. So yeah, some animals do try. Skittish leopards, when we were doing that, I was talking about it earlier, when we were doing the drone work, the nighttime stuff, we had some crazy footage, and we subsequently, it must have been Mulawati. Is that them or a termite? No, it's just a piece of leaf of Mulawati, and it was one of our vehicles trying to find, because this drone had spotted this leopard. And we drove into the area, and you could watch how this leopard would just wait for the car to come. As the car got closer, it would just go around the back of the car. And then the guys would say, no, the leopard's behind you. The car would turn around, and he would just go around another bush. And he would just constantly keep looping, just out of range that you couldn't see him. And he knew exactly where he was going, how he was doing it. And eventually it got to the point where the guys were just like, this is not working. And moved off. So, you know, it's... if they don't want to be found, they don't want to be seen, you've got no chance. Like now, almost. It's so thick at the moment, and obviously have very impaired vision in the dark. As much as we have infrared and these kinds of things, it's tricky to be able to follow lions like this at night. I mean, that's where we went through. I don't know where they went, because they were kind of right in front of me, and then it wasn't like we were far behind that lioness at all.
Just disappear.
I know that often when they take this route, I know exactly where they come out, but it's going to take a while for them to actually get through to that point. It's so wet down the slope here, because as we're right on the crest at the moment, but it drops off pretty quickly here into a seep line, and that's going to mean we're going to get stuck. So what I think I'm going to do is just get back onto the road and go round and just see if we can get lucky and get them coming out of the block. If they move quickly, it's very possible that we'll get them emerging on the other side. But it just looked like they were stalking something. A bit of lightning. Seeing anything in this is not easy. I'm also a little worried about Wendy's undercarriage here. It's not a place where you want to hit stumps and various other things, because otherwise you get yourself pretty stuck pretty quickly. All right. So it's going to take us a little time to get around to the point where they go. If you walk it, it's actually pretty quick, but in terms of driving, you've got to go quite far south to then come back north, or southwest to then come north. So we'll just do that, and then hopefully we'll get them. What's this in front here? Is this them in front? There's something, yeah, lions are in front here. I wonder if this is not the rest of them, or if they just came back out onto the road. Maybe they chased something and then came back onto the road. It's definitely 1, 2, yeah, it's 3 of them again. Well, that was all right. Luckily we came back to the road and didn't carry on inside there, because we would have had a tough time of it if that was the case. It's difficult to see who is who here. Obviously we just got tails at the moment. But they're very interested in something in the bush on the right-hand side. They keep stopping and listening in that direction. Just stop with them now.
They're looking well too.
They are looking good, aren't they?
And also another thing I'd like to mention about having seen the whole pride with the Nkahumas is that they're really recovering well from that mange.
Is it? Are they all good?
They're looking good.
Oh, that's really good news.
They're looking really good, yeah.
These guys, when we saw them yesterday as well, there was not a single sign of mange on them, which is to be expected. So the mange, as I'm sure you'll know, is that it thrives in the dry conditions. So the wetter it is, and I mean, it's not going to get much wetter than it is now, the less likely you're going to see the breeding of the mange mite on the coats. So they are in as good a condition as one could ask for. What I do need to do quickly is just call this in on the radio just so that the guys know about it, because I haven't said anything to anyone. Obviously, you guys have been with us, so you'll have known that I haven't said anything. But just because they're walking towards the sort of western boundary, I just want to let the guys know in case. Yeah, station's located 3 in Kuma Lionesses. They mobile now on Philemon's cut line from Shabamu westwards. Another one's cut off there again. Andrew, perseverance does pay off, and patience too. The bush gives you when it wants to give. And so sometimes you just got to kind of trust the process, and eventually things will happen. We're in an area where we have a huge amount of predators and animals, and you will get it eventually. I think as guides particularly, we often fret so much about, we need to find this now and we need to find that, and it's understandable because, I mean, Jenny, you'll know this, it's a long way to get here, and there's a lot of aspirations to see things, and as guides we always want to try and provide the best possible experience we can to not only the guests, but in this case obviously to you guys back home. And so there is sometimes this pressure to try and find as much as we can and as often as we can, so that you guys get to see your favorite animals. And but the bush is a funny way of rewarding patience. It's something that I say often. Just sit, and sometimes you'll find what you need. You'll come down the road at the right time, or you'll figure it out. But if you rush and you constantly kind of feeling anxious about it, I find that it's harder to find animals. And funny enough, I had this conversation with James Henry once, who was, obviously, those of you that maybe haven't watched recently won't know who James is, but James is one of our presenters, and he often used to have these runs where he'd have struggle with leopard, and he used to say to me, it's so frustrating. And I always used to say to him, the more frustrated you get, the less likely you're going to find them. I don't know why it is. Animals have an innate ability, I think, to pick up on whether or not there's a good vibe out there. And if you, I don't know why I say this, because it's probably not in any way true, but if you kind of have this anxiousness and this always pressure that you want to see something without just trusting the process, then often it can become harder to actually find the animals than not, because you typically then drive a little bit quicker than you normally would. You maybe don't check for a track as well as you should. You don't stop and listen or appreciate an impala. And Jenny, you were telling me this, is that the impalas have been one of your favorite parts of the trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is cool.
It's been amazing. I mean, I've just realised how beautiful they are, and how I've just enjoyed just spending time with them. I could sit with them all day.
No, so you see, that's the thing.
Incredible.
It's like impalas are an animal that everyone kind of goes past, but I mean, you've been on this crazy safari, and as you say, you've seen cheetah, you've seen wild dogs, you've seen lions, leopards, hyenas, everything else, but impalas have been one of your favourite parts about it because of how pretty they are, and sometimes stopping for them, and I don't know if it's happened on your trip where it's led you to something else.
No, not as yet, but even just the beauty of the impalas themselves, That's
awesome. So, that's the thing, is I think you got to appreciate everything, and when you start to appreciate things and you start to stop for multiple different things, that's when you start to really, the other stuff starts to come together, and you pick up what you need,
There has been sightings though where we've been in sightings, like for instance when I was at Ngala and I met the Birmingham lioness standing in the riverbed. And my very first drive, and I got to see the little
Eric's
cubs.
spoiling you.
He was brilliant. Eric, love him. And then the 2 elephant bulls came in and mock charged the car, and just all the other little
sort of aspects to it.
That came into the sighting. So it was.
So that's like another
really
thing
special.
that's a big thing and I hope that any of you, there's a little scrub here. That's a very brave scrub here to be running alongside lions. And I hope that any of you that do come on safari, that this will hopefully ring true for you guys, is that when you come out on a safari, as much as it's amazing to get the photographs and everything like that, there's also an element of just taking in the scene. So it's sorry, we were all just stopping quickly because we thought we heard something.
Roaring.
Roaring, did you hear roaring?
It was roaring, 100%.
maybe that's why they've all stopped, is to listen as well. But it's about taking in the scene and taking in everything that's around you. You know, it's not just the animal that you're looking at. So in this case, it's the scrub hare that's next to the lions. It's the roaring that's coming from the distance. Those all make for these incredible sightings, and they create an atmosphere that you can't always capture on a camera. So photos are important, and I get that, but sometimes it's good just to put the camera down and just absorb it for yourself, because those memories are going to be priceless later on in your life when you think back on your safari. And you kind of remember.
Tristan and I did exactly that when I was at Londolozi, and I was fortunate enough to meet the two Birmingham males, Nena and Tinyo, and they both had a lioness each, so they were both in mating pairs, and all 4 lions roared together.
That's amazing.
And I consciously was like, oh, do I record? I was like, no, just sit. And Nena was right next to the car roaring, and it's in my heart memory bank. That's where the photos are, like in my head and in my heart. So.
Exactly. So, you know, and that's the thing, is that experience will live with you for the rest of your life. Like sitting there in that, I don't know, was it dark or was it light?
Oh, sort of coming onto dark, but you hear the vibration in the vehicle and through your feet. It's just
And I find, like, actually lions roaring, the lower the light, the better in many respects. People appreciate it that much more when visually it's not that appealing, you know. So, like, when it's a bit dingy or dark, people are like, oh my goodness, that sound is so amazing. But when they can really see, the sound almost becomes secondary. But in the darkness, your sense of hearing becomes your primary sense when you can't really see what's going on. So, I mean, like, if it was starting to get dark, it's kind of one of the best times to be able to witness that. So I'm so glad you got to see the Birminghams. I'm very jealous because I haven't seen Tinyo or Nena for so long, and Nena was my favorite of the Birminghams. I mean, I'm not a big lion guy, as a lot of you know, but the Birminghams were cool. I enjoyed the Birminghams a lot. They were a cool pride or coalition, and they did some amazing stuff. But Nena was the kind of, him and Nsuku were the two kind of golden models of the Birmingham boys.
And
unfortunately,
I think Nena still is, definitely. He's still looking. He's still
got the beautiful mane.
The eyes. Oh my word, he looks.
That's the thing.
He looks fantastic. Tinyo, well, looking a little bit like Tingy, like a teddy bear that's been through the wash too many times.
Yeah, shame. But they've got good innings, you know. Tingy and I like that teddy bear look. It's got character, you know. That brings them a lot of character. But Tinyo was always quite scarred up from early on. His face was always carrying some sort of a wound. It's a pity that Mfumo and Nsuku and obviously the youngest one, Scrapper, was, you know, he.
February is the month of love, and nature is no exception. Tristan and Trishala will be igniting the flame to discuss the bonds formed in the African wild. Sign up to become an explorer and join them by the fire on Sunday, the 28th of February. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
We get asked quite regularly, what are the differences between African and Asian elephants? We caught up with Haresh, who's from Leopard Trails, which is based in Sri Lanka.
Of course, size and weight is the first thing you notice. The African elephant is much bigger than the Asian elephant. Tusks in the Asian elephant, it's a very small percentage of male elephants only who have tusks. I was told that there's a theory that the African elephant's ear is in the shape of Africa. The Asian elephant has a much smaller ear. The elephant represents the bush and the jungle in Sri Lanka in a quintessential manner, and I think it's very important that we do whatever we can to protect them.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for WildEarth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth.
Well, as you can see, we're still with the 3 lionesses. Sorry about just now when we had a little technical difficulty. I don't know what kind of happened there, but anyway, we're still with the lions. You can see they've gone into a bit of a stalk mode. Look at how that lioness is moving. Paws are slowly kind of pressing through the bush. Heads are much more lowered than what they were walking just now, and I don't know quite what it could be. The rain has just started. There's a storm rolling in. There's thunder. There's lightning. And so it's perfect conditions for lions to be on the hunt. They will use these conditions much like leopards would in order to find the food that they need. And they are just looking so good. I mean, yesterday they were full. They had eaten well yesterday. But they still look in supreme condition. Their muscles are all well developed. They're not looking really skinny at all. And it's nice to see how they've kind of developed into these power lionesses after being those small little cubs that future was almost threatened by the fact that the Pride had white muscle disease at one point in 2016, and it looked like it was going to be a really uphill struggle for those Nkuhumas. But I mean, they've managed to raise serious lionesses. These girls are not small by any stretch of the imagination. Unfortunately, though, where they're heading is somewhere that I'm very reluctant to off-road in. It is an aardvark paradise in there. In fact, the last time I saw an aardvark was right where we are right now, and it gets crazy in there. It's really not a funny place to off-road. I even have left leopards just because of how difficult it is. Just trying to see how far we are from. They might pop out for us. Let's just go around a little bit. Also don't want to go off-roading through thickets and chase whatever it is that they are potentially stalking, because in this area could be impalas, there could be a wildebeest hanging around. There's a little clearing that's just here that they might be moving towards. Could also be an aardvark. Imagine that. That would be quite something. Have we ever had an aardvark on Djuma live? I don't think so. We've seen them on the drone, and I've seen them with my own eyes since I've been at WildEarth. That was after a drive had finished the one day we spotted one. Yes, you had a deceased one, I remember that, but we're talking about live ones here, David. We don't want dead ones, I'm afraid. So this is the little clearing, but there's no impalas, no wildebeest, so I don't know what they are after. Let's just turn here and we'll just park for a little bit and just listen. And the one nice thing is when lions hunt, the sound of hooves and lions running is pretty distinct. And we should pick it up pretty easily if they do come out in this section. That's zebra. They're hunting zebra. There's a zebra straight in front of us here. There, you'll see it coming out, look. Going straight into that thicket. Now that thicket is not a place for a zebra to be moving. I know it's very dark, but you might just see the eye glowing, and it looks like just no, there's a couple zebra there. I'm not going to follow the lions or the zebra into this block, because all I'm going to do is disrupt the entire hunt. So what I'm going to do is rather just sit where we are now, and we're going to just have to rely on hearing and hope that the lions, because of where we left them, will chase the zebras out towards where we are if they do hunt. But it must be what they heard. I can't imagine it's anything else. But how amazing is their senses for them to have picked it up on the other side of that bush, that they realized, hang on a second, there's something here that they can potentially hunt. There's a whole herd of them coming. So Riley, who's 9 years old, wants to know why lions hunt at night. Well, Riley, it's pretty simple, because lions see better at night than the prey that they go after. So Riley, you know when you go outside and the lights are off, you can't see very well, can you? Our eyes are not designed to see well at night, and there's a very good reason for that, because of the cells that are in our eyes. So we have rods and cones, and cones give us color, so we're able to see all the different colors of the world, and rods are ones that pick up light. And so we have a very good split between the two, which means we get very, very good color, but we don't see well at night. Now with cats, they don't see very well in color, so a lot of their world is very washed out. They don't see the same bright colors like you and I do. They see much better at night because they have a lot more rods in their eyes, and that means that for them, their night vision is kind of like our day vision. And the zebras, on the other hand, not quite. So they get an advantage. They're able to hunt easier at night. They just chase them. You can hear thundering of hooves through the thickets. Let's just go around quickly. I didn't hear a zebra being grabbed, but there's definitely thundering of hooves through the thickets. The bigger main road, because I'll be able to see a lot nicer here than I will on the fire break. There's the zebra on the road running. I just want to try and scan to see if there's any lions behind it. I only see one little zebra running down this road. I don't know if the rest are already out. It's just one track on the road here, still running down. For two zebras on the road here. I wonder if they split the herd somehow and the others ran in a different direction. Crazy. Alright, let's just turn back a little bit and just go check, because often if lions miss, then they come back to the closest point of the road. But there's definitely way more zebras than what just came out here, from a tracks perspective. Did you hear the thundering of those?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Amazing, eh? So it's actually incredible how loud zebras are when they run. They're heavy animals, so they leave a very heavy, distinct kind of thundering when they run, much like horses. If any of you have ever been around horses, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, the fire break area is so thick that seeing anything on here is going to be very tricky. Also see how wet it is in this section. You can hear the kind of water on the road. Come on. It's typical that also this hunt will take place in a place where off-roading is near impossible. Not only are there all these aardvark holes here, but we're right on an active seep. And driving in this is just, we're going to get stuck, unfortunately, if we do it. So I want to just go back around to where I last saw them, because where those zebras ran from was not far from in here. And maybe, just maybe, I can pick up, if they did catch something, we'll definitely hear them feeding. But I didn't hear a zebra complain or bleat or anything like that, which they do when they are killed. And I'm just trying to think where we had them. It's just here in front. let's just turn off quickly and have a little listen. And just hear, if they're in here, we'll hear them if they're feeding. It's all quiet. When lions catch something and they start to feed, there's lots of groaning and growling as they jockey for position. It's not a quiet experience. I just don't know which way they would have come out. Either they followed the zebra out of the other side, or they could have run further down in the block. I'm not 100% sure now where to actually check for them coming out. I was hoping that they would have emerged back to where we started, or where we left them going into the block, but they might have just gone all the way back around to where the zebras came out. Because often when things run, they just turn and they go back to where they were. What an adrenaline-packed end to things. Certainly not what I expected. Lions hunting zebras on Djuma is something I haven't had in years. So, Jenny, your lion luck is strong.
It's huge, this trip. It has been huge.
Yeah, you were saying earlier you've had much more luck with lions, and well, this is proof of it.
Even more. Yeah. It's just, that's my animal.
Well, that's a good thing. But this has been super cool, right, to hear the sound of everything running. I believe everyone that's watching is very happy that you got to see lions this evening and that it wasn't a barren drive.
That's great.
And we'll have to try and track down Tandy and Marips and Klalamba while you're still here. Jenny's going to be staying at Djuma still for a few more nights. Yeah. Won't be on our drives, but she'll be at the lodge, so we'll still see you around and try and kind of help out where we can.
Thank you.
In order to try and find those cats for you, and then
Thank you so much.
Get your guide to join us. Oh, come on, girls. Where are you? It'd be nice to finish up with you guys. Definitely not an easy place, or good place for zebras to be. I wonder why they went in here like this. I would have thought they would have just stayed on that clearing or on the fire break. If they'd had a bigger pride, I think they would have been in a lot of trouble. The Talamatis are supremely good when it comes to zebras and wildebeest. This is where the zebras came out, was right here, so just trying to check. I don't think we're going to have much more luck, I'm afraid. It's just the block is so thick here, and where those zebras ran from was right in the center. And it's that time of the day, unfortunately, where we need to start saying goodbye. Jenny, I hope that you've had a wonderful time with us. Did you enjoy yourself this afternoon?
I've absolutely loved it. Thank you. Thank you, Tristan. Thank you, Darby.
Absolute pleasure. I'm sorry we didn't get the spots, but we did get the lions, which was...
We got the 20 cats. So.
Exactly, we got the 20 cats, so that's always a good thing. And we also had a lot of fun just chatting about all things kind of wildlife related, which is very, very cool. Now, hopefully all of you at home had a good time as well. Remember that you can also join this process. Ticket to Dream is how you basically end up on the vehicle with us. And like I say, hopefully at home you had a good safari. Seems like Phinda delivered lions and well, Djuma too, so it was a tawny-filled drive. From all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning on our sunrise safari. Bye for now.